think it matters what year you were born. You hear that song and your ears perk up and you say, well, this is a fine piece of music. It withstands the test of time. And of course, you know, it was 1984 when Van Halen released that classic. It's called Jump. And on this day in 1984, Jump began a 5-week run at number one on the U.S. singles chart. Every Monday morning on this show, I know it's Wednesday. Stay with me for just a sec. Every Monday morning on this show at 11 a.m., our good friend and musicologist Brian Allison joins us for a look at this week in music history. That song came up. That album came up, Van Halen's 1984. And we talked about the song. It's a song that I first used, and I've used others over time, but I remember being at a get-together with some friends one Saturday night, I don't know, many years ago, and Jump came on the playlist, and I stopped and said, hey, do you think they knew? Because I got to think that when they recorded that song, even from the opening synth, they knew they had a massive hit on their hands, didn't they? Van Halen and company knew. Jump, number one on the charts for 5 straight weeks, beginning on this day in 1984. This day marks a bit of a new beginning on our show here because I'm feeling somewhat remorseful. No, not somewhat. I am feeling remorseful about the way the show started yesterday. As I think I've explained to you before, I come into the station several hours before the show begins so I can prepare to be on the air with you. 4 hours of talk radio requires more than 4 minutes of preparation. So I come in a little bit after 6 o'clock. I consider the start of my day 6 a.m. when I get into my car to listen to Mark Douglas and Christine Clark tell me what's going on. And as I drive to work, I'm listening to All News Mornings, and then I get here and I begin preparing for this part of the day, our part of the day together. And yesterday, I was like right up, I think I sat down in the chair at 8:59 and 20 seconds, about 40 seconds before the song started. And I had lots of things lined up, prepared to share with you. And it just, I know that I wasn't, and I'm sorry for that, as patient or as kind as I could have been, as I should have been with you, because we got calls right at the beginning of the show today, and I'm like, but I've got this stuff that I want to share, right? But after thinking about it after the show yesterday, I remembered, and I mean this, I've always said it, I'm going to hold true to it. It's not my show. I know they put my name on it, but it's not mine. It's ours. I am absolutely here every day for the conversations, but I get the sense lately that you kind of feel like I do when the day is starting, right? Like you're tuned in, my 9 a.m.ers. I love my 9 a.m.ers on this show. And you've got some stuff on your mind that maybe you want to share, right? We got a great call from Doug yesterday talking about Trustler Road at Huron and how dangerous it is as people come over the rise driving way too fast. We got great calls from Gary and Shelley talking about the new goofy, I don't like them, I'm sorry, you can't make me like them, garbage bins that we're getting in this region, and they had thoughts to share on that. We got a call from Andre just being Andre, and I was like, but I got to get to this, and I got to get to that, and then again, I reminded myself as I was walking with Rosie yesterday that it's not about what I want to talk about. Maybe you have something on your mind that you just want to share, something that's chafing your chaps. Maybe you can help set the agenda for the day. I will absolutely continue to do my preparation because sometimes I worry, like, well, if nobody phones at the beginning of the show, then I've got to have something to talk about, right? But we set the agenda together here. So I'm going to remind you that phone line's open the minute we begin the show every day. I will always come to you prepared, but I'm not going to be as impatient and unkind as I was yesterday because I was trying to get to my stuff. It's not about my stuff. It's our show, and I want you to have the opportunity to use this platform as much as I do. So I'm sorry for my impatience and lack of kindness yesterday. Truly I am. I hope you can forgive me for that. And what we're going to do, beginning today, is the reminder, phone lines are open. The minute you hear that music start the show, 519-570-2545. star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. And then along with what I have prepared, I will put it on the back burner. I'll get the Farwell Show 5 out of the way because that's the important piece of business I must do. And then we'll hear, if you want to call, we'll talk to you. Maybe there's something in the Farwell Show 5 that you want to riff on. Maybe you want to make it the Farwell Show 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 because it's your show too. Whatever it is. So we're going to start the show with our music. I'll tell you why we chose that piece of music. We're going to get right into the Farwell Show 5, and then we're going to hear from you. And if you don't feel like calling that day, no problem. I'll have some things prepared that I'm interested in talking about, and I hope you're interested in hearing. But if you want to be the one to set the day's agenda, I am absolutely here for it. So let's get to that Farwell Show 5, the key piece of business I must deliver to you at the beginning of every show. Number one, Wilmot Council will not be welcoming CCTV cameras into the township. Council voted this week against the proposal from Waterloo Regional Police to install the cameras on township property. Mayor Natasha Salonen explained some of her reasons why.
This technology is currently being used in large urban settings, and it's being used across jurisdictions to track bigger crime issues going on, which again aren't necessarily reflective of what's going on in Wilmot. Right now, I don't know, and especially because it looks like we might be one of the first in the region to adopt this, I don't know that I want us to be the guinea pigs on this project, but in the future, perhaps this is something to be reevaluated.
The cameras have been approved for use in Waterloo. Number two, we got another 6 centimeters of snow last night, inching us closer to a new snowfall record in the region. We received 249.4 centimeters of snow in the winter of 2007-2008. So far this year, we have received more than 240 centimeters. I'm awaiting an official total from our buddy Kitchener Cooney from Environment Canada, but we are mere centimeters away from a new record. Again, that record, 249.4 centimeters, set back in the winter of 07-08. Number three, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, U.S. President Donald Trump defended his global tariffs during his record-breaking State of the Union address. What was record-breaking about it? The length. Trump used his 108-minute speech in Washington last night to insist that tariff revenues are saving the United States. He also defended his immigration tactics, boasting about his policy changes on deportation. And when it comes to immigration and jobs, polling shows that Trump is tanking in popularity among independent voters who could play a critical role in the upcoming midterm elections. Number four, more housing units are coming to Canadian Armed Force bases in Ontario. Defense Minister David McGuinty has announced a $3.7 billion plan to add 6,000 more units where the Canadian Armed Forces operates. Kingston is slated to get 900 new units. Petawawa will receive 1,000. And number five, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, game day, baby. It is a rare Wednesday roadie for the Kitchener Rangers, but can you really call it a roadie when we're just going to Guelph? No, you cannot call that a roadie. We're just taking a little trip next door for a date with the Storm. Josh Piercy and I are giving our All News Afternoons colleagues a bit of a break because we'll be on the air with pregame coverage starting at 6 this evening. Guelph has won 4 in a row. The Kitchener Rangers have points in 6 straight games.
Bueller.
And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning, the 25th of February. Our phone lines open the minute we start the show every day. Let's get to them. Doug is with us. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Mike. I got to Trump. I'm sorry.
You can. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. You want to talk Trump? I'm here for it.
I can't believe this, man. People keep talking about how short he is on gray matter, and he's actually stands there last night. And how did you put it? He's tanking in the polls. Yeah, people are telling him, "Oh, we can't handle this. We're winning too much." he doesn't understand that there's many, many thousands of people out there who are absolutely tired of what he's doing. And I'm praying that the midterms will take away his ability to slam other countries with tariffs. You know, maybe America, maybe they're doing better, but they're doing better at the expense of running other countries, including Canada, into the ground. And I'm getting very tired of it. But anyway, yeah, he went on and on last night. And one last thing, you know, your philosophy is that not everyone is a jackwagon.
That is my philosophy, yes.
It is true, but everyone has the potential to be a jackwagon.
Doug, I appreciate you. We do, but we also have the potential to be unfailingly kind, right? Kindness costs you nothing. Remember that especially on a day like today where we celebrate Pink Shirt Day, anti-bullying. Let's just spread a little positivity, although I get that it's difficult when it comes to the President of the United States. I find it fascinating. I do believe he lives in a world of his very own making. Whatever he believes in his head is the way that the world is. And I do think there will be a bit of a wake-up call for President Trump when the midterms roll around later this year, but we shall see. We shall see. Gary, good morning. Farwell's Force member number 41.
Good morning, buddy. So I heard your opening statement and stuff like that, and, you know, you sound a lot like me where you can be kind of hard on yourself and stuff, but I don't think you need to change anything, Mike. I love your show. I usually catch it at 9 a.m. and, you know, a few times throughout the morning until 1 o'clock, and I don't see anything kind of wrong. It's just, I don't know, you know, but I can understand, you know, what you're saying and that, but, yeah, I think you do a fantastic job, Mike, and, you know, I know a lot of listeners would agree that it's nice to hear you know, talk for a little bit, and, you know, it's kind of your show, it's got your name, but I get what you're saying, it's our show, but, you got a lot of listeners, clearly, because the force is growing, but, you know, we all love you, buddy. You know, you're doing a fantastic job. Keep up the great work. All
right, Gary. Well, I appreciate that. And listen, one of the things I said from day one on this show, which, by the way, is coming up on 9 years ago, if you can believe it. But I said, and forgive my language, but I said, we will call one another on our crap on this show. And so I'm kind of calling myself on my own. I wasn't as patient as I should have been. I wasn't as kind as I should have been because I thought, I've got these things that I want to tell you, and I'm so excited to tell you about them. But it's like crowdsourcing, right? The agenda of the day on this show. I am more than happy to hear from you because I'll learn something usually, or maybe, like I said earlier, you're just like me. I get that sense lately because we've been busy on the phones from the minute the show begins. So you get up, you get a coffee into you, and you're like, I've got something I want to say. Well, guess what? This is the place for you to say it. And I'll eventually get to the stuff that I've got. And if you're not feeling talkative one day, that's fine. I'll get to my stuff then because you're not talkative. But I want to make sure that it is reinforced, our show here, okay? So we're going to start with music. I'll tell you why we chose that piece of music. We're going to do the Farwell Show 5 and kind of set my agenda. And then you get to set yours. And together, we will come up with a focus, Andre, for our 4-hour show together. I'm always telling Andre he's got a focus out there. It's the Mike Farwell Show, where you participate as much, if not more, than me. Tell me to shut up every once in a while. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Coming up just after the 9:30 news this morning, a conversation about something, and I don't want to be that guy that says I told you so, but truly, years ago, I think it was enough years ago that Dave Jaworski was still the mayor of Waterloo, because he messaged me after I brought this up on the air. It was an idea that occurred to me while I was out walking the dog. I seem to get my best ideas in two places, while walking the dog or in the shower. I don't know why that happens, but those are my eureka moments. Anyway, years ago, after going for a walk with the dog and counting the number of churches just in the immediate neighborhood around my home, I thought, man, that's a lot of space. And we need housing. And so I brought it up as an idea of, sharing that space. And Waterloo Mayor at the time, Dave Jaworski, said, you sound like the mayor of Barrie, who had proposed a similar idea. So I had not heard the mayor of Barrie say it, but I said it some years ago, and it seems to be gaining traction. So more on that just after 9:30. But right now, let's get back to the phones because they are busy this morning on our show here on 570 News Radio. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mike. I'm a 9 a.m.er.
I love my 9 a.m.ers, Mary. I love them.
You should. Anyway, I concur with that fellow that pumped you up with...
Don't pump me up. It's okay.
No.
Please.
Because it's the truth, Mike. It's the truth. Nothing but the truth. Nothing but the whole truth. No, you are a great host, and you're a great guy. I should shut up soon, shouldn't I?
Yes, you should. Please, Mary.
And I said to my husband, there's nothing on TV. There's no Olympics. There's no games that we want to watch. I said, just for comic relief, we might watch some of that speech. And it certainly was comic relief. But also, Mike, I could only take just under 10 minutes of it.
You couldn't take the whole 108 minutes of it?
No, well, doesn't he get it? Like, they should be serving cocktails to those poor people that have to sit there for 2 hours. Get them just juiced up so at least they're happy.
Mary, I love it. Thank you, Mary. Good to hear from you today. It's not a bad idea. If you want me to sit in that chair and listen to you drone on for an hour and 48 minutes, bring a cocktail by. Kyle, good morning.
Good morning. May not be a 9 a.m.er, but I forgive you. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
We are not perfect, because if we were perfect, I would have beaten Wayne Gretzky's record on ice like 3 times already.
And it would be a boring show, right? If I was perfect, if we were all perfect, yeah.
I mean, to do 365 days a year straight, that's impossible in my opinion.
There you go.
So, anyways, I can't wait to hear about the aviation and women, or women in aviation, I mean.
Yeah, coming up at 11 this morning.
Exactly, and then I'll probably talk back to you at lunchtime. So appreciate it. Don't be hard on yourself. Have a coffee like I am and enjoy, my friend. Have a good day.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate the call. I am enjoying my coffee. I think my travel mug holds 2 cups, so I'm into cup number 2 for sure. I usually finish about 9:30 with what I started with when I got here just after 6 this morning. But yes, Women in Aviation Week will be celebrated on this show, 11 this morning. 11:30, we're going to get more into the President of the United States, the challenges that we face as a country dealing with the neighbor next door, plus some of that State of the Union. Don't you worry. Andre is with us this morning as well. Good morning, Andre.
Good morning, Mike. Focus here. So,
attaboy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points you had this morning. So I want to focus on point number 2, point number 5.
Okay, 6 centimeters of snow.
Yep.
Okay.
And the Rangers.
Yes.
So I remember Terry one time called and said that the Memorial Cup was won, I think, 2007, 2008 by Kitchener.
No, it was hosted by Kitchener in 2008.
Okay. And the record was not beaten snow since. So I really believe that we're going to get the gold medal for breaking the snow record, and that the Kitchener Rangers are going to win this year, Mike.
Andre, I like the connection you just made. I can get behind that. The last time we had a snowfall record, the Kitchener Rangers got to the Memorial Cup final and fell just short. Spokane beat us right at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. Those dirty so-and-sos came into our barn and beat us. They had this goaltender named Dustin Tokarski who was unreal. And then they broke the Memorial Cup. Do you remember that? I don't think they really broke it. It just fell apart in their hands when they tried to pick it up. But that happened in 2008. And Andre says, you know what? New snow record, and we'll get back to the Memorial Cup, but we'll have a different result maybe. I like this, Andre. I like your focus this morning. George is also with us on the show. Good morning, George.
George, I'm sorry, Mike. Good morning. How you keeping?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, Mike, I'm doing good. Mike, this is just my opinion, but I feel that first half hour should be yours. It should be your monologue. It should be what's on your mind, your Farwell 5 thing. There's a reason why I never call you between 9 and 9:30, because I want to hear what's on your mind, your monologue, the things that you and your pet dog have done. So that's just my intake, and I hope you take it to heart.
Thanks, George. Appreciate that. And trust me, the Farwell Show 5, that kind of agenda being set for the day will always stay there. And in the absence of busy phones, I'll have a few more little tidbits. The beauty of it this way is I'll sprinkle those tidbits right through the show. You'll just have to keep on listening to hear them. Frank, good morning to you on the phones.
Who's better than Austin Matthews?
Everybody!
What? You want the goal? Let's go.
I'm a sore loser, Frank. I'm a real sore loser.
Yeah, I'm a sore loser too, but when I saw that face after he won, I'm just, you know what? Good for him. And just the hate that even before the Olympics and during the Olympics, especially on like TSN, I don't know who, like journalists, I don't even know what they are, but they kept on saying Austin Matthews isn't a leader, blah, 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 and all that stuff. I'm happy that he won.
All right. Well, listen, and Frank, I'm glad that you are. I'll be honest with you. I'm having a real hard time. I am still a Leafs fan. I am always going to be a Leafs fan. The behavior of one player, even the captain of the team, does not change my support of the team. But I was never really, I know AM on AM in the AM that we've done for a couple of years on this show. I like to play it up. The greatest hockey player in the world. I know that he's not. I think that Austin Matthews is a better player than he gets credit for being. I mean that. Both ends of the ice, kills, penalties, power play, goal scoring, you name it. But I like to exaggerate that. I truly believe and understand that Connor McDavid is, without question, the best player in the world today. And heck, the way Sidney Crosby's been going prior to the injury. But I digress. I'm having a hard time with Austin Matthews. It's fine that he wins the gold medal with Team USA. But that phone call that Team USA took from the president and the laughter when the president said, we're going to have to invite the women's team too. I don't know. Somebody in that room should have stepped forward and said, hey, guys, this isn't something you laugh at. What are we doing here? Those women won a gold medal too, deservingly. And I didn't like the fact that he just participated in that group dynamic one little bit. So gold medal, USA beating Canada aside, I'm struggling with Mr. Matthews. I'm still a Leafs fan. My feelings towards Austin Matthews will not change my support of the team. It's a lifelong fandom, and I will continue being a fan of that team long after Austin Matthews leaves it, which he will someday. But I'm having a heck of a hard time with what happened there. It is not a good sign about the culture in that room and the character of the people on that team, and that would include the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Several years ago, I promise. This is on the record if I could go back and find the exact day on the show, but several years ago, I was out for a walk with the dog, and I wasn't too far from home, and I was walking past a church, and then another church, and then another, and another, and I started thinking to myself how many other churches were nearby because I've lived in the neighborhood for quite some time, and my mind just started working around the idea of, gosh, those are really big buildings on significant enough parcels of land, and not as many people go to those buildings anymore. Also, in this modern time, do we need such a large, ornate building to attend a church service? Or could we congregate in something simpler and then use that land upon which all of these churches sit for something like, I don't know, the housing that we need so desperately? I brought this up on the show, and I was told by one of our mayors at the time that it had come up, that it was either the Association of Municipalities of Ontario or the Big City Mayors Caucus, but regardless, it was brought up by the mayor of Barrie, who was thinking along similar lines. And it seems that we are not the only ones as time moves on. I'm joined by Mike Wood-Daly, who's the Director of Research with, is it Relevin, Mike?
It is.
Okay, yep. Relevin. Thank you very much for making time for the show.
No problem. Glad to be here.
This is obviously something, the idea of converting properties where churches currently sit into housing, that you are very much involved in.
Absolutely.
So what opportunities exist in this regard, Mike?
Well, we know that, based on estimates from the National Trust for Canada and research that we've done with Relevin, that about a third of worship spaces are going to close this decade. And looking at, closure data from the CRA over a 10-year period, we know that the trend is that many of these faith communities are going to close. There's many of them large properties that they have available that are either currently underused or are going to be available on the market that we could potentially make available for housing. We also know that there's large, really active congregations who are vibrant and have, considerable human resources and financial resources who could be investing in the idea of providing housing on their faith properties.
Do we know what the numbers look like? How many people could be housed in these spaces?
We're not sure exactly the numbers if we look across the country. We know that, in Waterloo, that, we've got roughly 313 worship sites, I think, that we've been able to identify addresses on. And if, even if we were able to mobilize about 20% of those properties, that we could really make a significant dent in the housing crisis. One of the things that we're looking at with Relevin is we've initiated something that's called the Winnipeg Declaration that's looking at mobilizing up to 20% of faith communities across the country to consider housing. And we know that with the support of municipalities, provinces, federal government, that moving on those properties, as I mentioned, would make a considerable dent in responding.
What stands between us and doing this kind of work on church properties?
Well, I think if we look at the equation from both sides, there's the question from within the religious communities themselves. These congregations are very attached to the properties that they have been worshiping in, and even though there's declining attendance, there's a lot of emotional attachment to these sites. They've had members of their families married there, buried there, anniversary parties, and just the sense of community that they've grown up with in those congregations. And so there's a level of grief work that needs to go on to reimagine, reconsider what they could be doing with their properties. From the municipal side, there's all sorts of challenges around zoning questions, heritage questions. There's the conversation with the surrounding neighborhood and whether neighbors want to see a development on these properties. I think we're all aware that Canada has a housing crisis, and many Canadians would want to say, yes, we need to build more housing. Many of them would also say, we don't want it right next to us. So I think part of the challenge is that we know these faith sites are embedded in communities already. They're close to transit. They're already providing community services, and our belief is that they provide one of the greatest opportunities to partner with municipalities to deliver on housing.
I've certainly felt that way for a long while myself, as I alluded to at the outset of this conversation. And I think you paint the picture perfectly about the challenges that are faced in communities with any change, and particularly, I think, the emotional attachment that comes with these properties that are places of worship. What has Relevin's experience been like when you have been able to partner with a faith-based institution to create housing?
It's been really exciting to see congregations who are motivated to do something with their property. We've had congregations where, the debate inside is animated, where some people are wanting to move ahead and others, have very valid questions about density, focus. What's the mix of affordable versus market that goes into a project? But it's super exciting to see, particularly older members of a congregation who have been a part of the life of a congregation for 40, 50, 60 years even, and stand up and say, I've got attachment to what we have done here, but I'm also really excited about making a difference in our community and responding to community need, because they believe that's what their faith community should be about.
Where did this idea originate to possibly convert church properties into housing?
Well, I don't think it's a new idea. Lots of congregations have been involved in looking at housing on their properties, particularly around seniors housing, since the 60s and 70s. But typically the model was where we'd sell off a piece of our property and we'd partner with a development group, and they would build something there. We really believe that there's advantage for congregations to stay engaged in a housing project. And Relevin came together initially as a foundation called the Trinity Centers Foundation, but there was a number of us who were kind of working in the area independently, and under Reverend Graham Singh, who's our CEO, and is priest at St. Jack's Anglican Church in Montreal, kind of gathered us as a collective who were bringing different skills in the area of working with faith communities, but also with surrounding neighborhoods in terms of what the engagement of a faith community could be. I worked as a pastor for 10 years in the Baptist Church, and then moved into community economic development, and that's sort of how my engagement moved towards working with Relevin and in this particular field.
It is an interesting field for sure. I think there's tremendous opportunity here, and I'm glad we could have the conversation this morning. Mike, thank you very much for being part of it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Mike Wood-Daly is the Director of Research at Relevin, which is a charity that aims to repurpose churches into community hubs and affordable housing. We're seeing this happen right now here in the region of Waterloo, right? St. Paul's, right? Bridgeport, Lancaster? I'm almost positive of that. Is the first example that I can remember for the very reasons that I mentioned at the outset. You've got this big, beautiful church building sitting on a large parcel of land, and they realize that this land could be useful. There's a supportive housing project built there. And furthermore, again, to my point earlier, before I had the conversation with Mike Wood-Daly from Relevin, they decided at St. Paul's that attending a church service, church in air quotes, I guess, does not necessarily mean going into that same building. They use a room, for lack of a better term, in this newly developed set of buildings. There are 2 low-rise apartments there now. And again, there's supportive housing baked into this. But does it need to be the traditional church, if you will, that we've grown accustomed to? Again, St. Paul's, I'm almost positive at St. Paul's, Bridgeport and Lancaster, was the first such instance that I can recall. We've got Indwell working in a number of places in town on this. I know St. Mark's, downtown Kitchener, right? At King and Green, right by Wren at Midtown there, near Central Fresh and KCI. I believe it's St. Mark's there. They're in the process of doing this. All Saints Anglican in Waterloo on Northfield, not far from Westmount. We've had Reverend Marty Levesque on the show talking about that, and they've gone quite a ways down the line now to get some housing built, and they created, with what they sold, they were able to build a new community center because congregations are dwindling. There are more examples that are not coming to me off the top of my head, but I'm sure you've seen this happening around town. And I get the emotional attachment, right? Like, here's some jackwagon just out walking his dog, looking at all these churches and decides there's a better use for this. That was me many years ago. But really, when you think about it, isn't that the very purpose of a church, or dare I say, quote unquote, the church, right? Bring me your poor, bring me your destitute. There is a real opportunity here for these faith-based institutions to walk the walk. I'm thinking of this is the parish that I grew up in at St. Anne's in Kitchener on East Avenue. And I'm thinking of even the rectory that is attached to the church or next to the church for the priest's residence. My goodness, that is a large home, not to mention the large church itself. I was at St. Dan's on Ottawa Street. I think the address is actually Franklin or Midland. It doesn't matter. I was, St. Dan's in Kitchener for a funeral the other week. And look at, the church isn't so large per se, but look at that parking lot that's there. And I know that supports the Stanley Park Community Center as well, but my goodness, is there room? Could we do some housing over parking there as an idea if you don't want to lose the parking? I could go on and on. I understand the emotional attachment, right? This is a church. Churches have always looked this way, right? There's the altar, there's the high ceiling, there's all the stained glass, there's you name it. But is that necessary? Is that the only way we can congregate and celebrate our faith together? Certainly not from where I'm sitting today. Maybe you feel differently, but I think this is a massive, untapped opportunity. And again, I will go back to the idea that I think this is a way that faith-based institutions can walk the walk when it comes to helping in the community, particularly helping those who are, in some cases, in desperate need of this housing. What do you think of the idea? Are we on to something here? If I look at the numbers just here in the region, based on the research from Relevin, more than 300 faith groups, properties amounting to more than 967 acres, upon which there's more than 600,000 square feet of space that could be used for building. That could provide housing for up to 55,000 people. It's right there. If the congregation is willing, and if we as a community are willing to take a step forward down this path. Would love to get your thoughts. We'll take a break, come back with your phone calls on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I think we're all aware that Canada has a housing crisis, and many Canadians would want to say, yes, we need to build more housing. Many of them would also say, we don't want it right next to us. So I think part of the challenge is that we know these faith sites are embedded in communities already. They're close to transit. They're already providing community services. And our belief is that they provide one of the greatest opportunities to partner with municipalities to deliver on housing.
That is Mike Wood-Daly, Director of Research for Relevin, which is a charity that aims to repurpose churches into community hubs and affordable housing. If we look just in the region of Waterloo, research from Relevin identifies more than 300 faith groups sitting on almost 1,000 acres, 600,000 square feet of space, which could, by way of Relevin's estimates, house more than 55,000 people in affordable units. Again, easy to say, it's not my property, it's not my congregation, but I'll tell you what, if we had the conversation at St. Anne's in Kitchener, the parish that I grew up in, I would absolutely be open to the discussion of repurposing the land where this massive church and massive rectory sit for affordable housing. Even though, having grown up in that church, that means the housing in my neighborhood. But I just think there is tremendous untapped potential on those lands. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Mary, good morning.
Good morning once again. Mike, I don't know if you know that there are a number of congregations, because, as you said, they're getting smaller, they different religions meet in the same church.
Oh, that's interesting, too. Yeah, but then what about the churches where they used to meet? What happens to those?
Well, whatever happens. But I'm saying that the people realize that they can't keep up with with
sure.
the dwindling, which I think. But also be in mind that the church had the out of the cold program.
Yes.
Yeah, that was through the church. Historic St. Paul's is already putting buildings on their property, and so is St. Peter's Lutheran, and Historic St. Paul's does not have that much room. It's a very small parking lot, but they are doing that, and so is St. Peter's. Where's
St. Paul's, Mary?
Historic St. Paul's.
Yeah, where's that one?
At the corner of is it Church and Queen?
Okay.
And St. Matthew's is up there too.
Yeah.
And they don't have much. They don't have much parking spot either.
But I'm not so concerned about parking. I'm concerned about the ability to create housing.
No, but you're saying they have all this land. They don't. Some of them have.
Sure. Some of them. I get you. Some of them don't have as much as others, but there is still potential there, I believe.
Well, okay, yeah, but I'm just saying there are things going on, already, and I agree with you. If there's extra land, and that's why St. Peter's on. Was it on Fred?
That's on Queen too, isn't it? Yeah, Queen near Weber. Yeah.
But they have a good thing going.
They
there.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're. The people want to be kind, and some of them they do the meals for the kids. Like they do serve a purpose in the community. But I get you 100%. Yes, we need homes, and that's a good place to get them.
All right, Mary. Thank you. Yes, please don't misunderstand. In no way am I trying to diminish the work that our parishes are doing, our congregations are doing in the community even today. I think this is a possibility for another positive step forward because, again, at least from where I'm sitting and with my Catholic upbringing, this is the very essence of what we do, isn't it? As faith-based human beings, we provide for those who are less fortunate. And as congregations, if we've got this property that can help in that regard, it seems to me to be a slam dunk. All right, we're coming up on your 10 a.m. update in the 570 News Center. It's a busy hour ahead, including our weekly conversation with the Blacklocks reporter. We'll mind Ottawa's business. We'll check in on Cambridge and the YWCA there that says 20 shelter beds for women is simply not enough. Plus, a concert coming up this weekend to support our local veterans and my free unsolicited advice for our municipalities to help us understand, because we know snow clearing crews and pothole crews are working their tails off. So why don't our cities share that information with us? All of that coming up in the next hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a Wednesday morning, and every Wednesday morning after the 10 a.m. news, we check in with our friends in Ottawa. In fact, in the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. It is the Blacklocks Reporter. You'll find it online, blacklocks.ca, and you'll find it well worth that subscription because you'll get stuff there that you don't often find anywhere else. The managing editor of the Blacklocks Reporter is Tom Korski, who joins us for these weekly chats. Tom, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Seems to me, according to what I've read at Blacklocks, that the Gulf War doesn't warrant any recognition on our National War Memorial, nor does it warrant combat benefits for the veterans of the Gulf War.
35 years ago this week it ended. Hard to believe, isn't it? And there were over 4,000 Canadians who served in that war. It is true the war lasted 8 months and there were no Canadian combat deaths. But you recall those days, anyone who was alive then, there was a real sense it could have ended very badly. There was really no predictive outcome. And ever since then, for 35 years, the Canadian service people who had served in that war have sought combat benefits and recognition on the National War Memorial. We see through access to information records now, Mike, that the feds have really gone to the wall on exclusion on the National War Memorial since there were no deaths. And they have really had to be dragged kicking and screaming, including by the Commons Veterans Affairs Committee, to extend ordinary wartime benefits to the over 4,000 who served in Kuwait after Iraq invaded that country. It's interesting that there is a special corner of hell for any veteran. If you ever run across a veteran, ask them how it went with their pension or benefits claim with the Department of Veterans Affairs. It is, you talk to any of them, and I mean anybody. I've never met anyone who had a happy experience. It's always a game to drive mice crazy.
I struggle with this one an awful lot, Tom. Even former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney's appeal fell on deaf ears.
He did. He in 2022, Mulroney wrote a personal letter. We see it through access to information from his home to the Minister of National Defense and said, we can't forget these people. They did honor our country. And it was an important event. And Mulroney, in response, from the defense minister in the day, Anita Anand, got a form letter. Can you imagine? He got a form letter. It said, "Dear Brian Mulroney," and it essentially said in slightly more eloquent terms, "This is not my department. Bring it up with Veterans Affairs." So there you go. If a former prime minister can't get anything resembling service when it comes to veterans benefits, imagine if you're just a veteran. It's a thing.
Yeah, just a veteran, indeed. Okay, let's move on to Canada Post. We give it money and then we give it more money and say it ain't so, Tom, that we're never going to see that money again.
Say members of the Commons Government Operations Committee, they have been trying to go through Canada Post accounts. The Post Office in the last 13 months has received $2 billion in special loans from Cabinet. They are not yet reporting their 2025 losses. It's expected to be about $1 billion, Mike. That would be the biggest annual loss ever. And MPs are saying, can we just, let's be frank with the taxpayer. We're never seeing that money again, are we? Well, testified Canada Post executives, no, these are repayable loans. On their best day, they say not until they are financially viable, I'm using air quotes here, financially viable, will the Canada Post Corporation consider repaying those loans to taxpayers. You'll never see that money again, Mike. It's gone.
Be frank with the taxpayer, Tom. What language is this that you're speaking this morning?
I know.
Okay, we have the high-speed rail proposal. I know we've taken a first step on that rail line, but and boy, it sounds beautiful. It's gonna run fast. It's gonna reduce congestion. It's a sexy project, but up to $90 billion to get it done.
And that's a guesstimate. This is on the level. That's the CEO of the Crown Corporation. It's called Alto, formerly Via Rail, High Speed Rail. Crown Corporation that's overseeing the project. This is the fantasy they've been kicking this around literally since centennial. This was a centennial year project. That's 1967 for anyone under the age of 60. And here is the Crown Corporation testifying in Senate National Finance Committee. Says sexy project. His words, not mine. Admitted they don't have any cost. Even to call it an estimate, $60 to $90 billion is just guesswork. They haven't done the engineering. They don't know when it will be completed. Minimum first stage is 7 years. And that's for Ottawa to Montreal, for anyone who happens to live in those two cities. So a highly regional project, an extraordinary cost. and many, many delays. I would put a bet on this, and I'm not a gambling man, Mike, that you are never, ever stepping foot on a high-speed train from southern or southwest Ontario to go into Montreal. However, you may pass a rabbit hole that consumes billions and billions of taxpayers' dollars with nothing to show for it. That's a surety.
I love the way you put that, because we have been chasing, well, as you said, it's a centennial. It was a centennial project, and all we do is talk and spend and talk and spend, and the rail. I'm with you. I would put money on that same thing, Tom. That's a safe bet from where I'm sitting.
I remember the old turbo trains. Some of the old timers, some graybeards might remember the turbo trains. That was Paul Hellyer. The late Paul Hellyer was Minister of Transport in the day, and they were going to put Pratt and Whitney jet engines into locomotives, and it was going to zoom you at 100 miles an hour from southwest Ontario up to Ottawa. The inaugural flight, it hit a truck in Kingston and it was derailed. Now there it is. So we're talking 55 years of futility. Yes.
Okay. One final point before I let you go, because it was just mentioned in our 10 a.m. news update, and that is money by way of aid that Canada will be sending to Cuba. Blacklock's also reporting on this from Global Affairs, but an undisclosed sum of taxpayer money headed to Cuba, Tom.
They wouldn't disclose it in committee last evening. Now, you mentioned on your newscast correctly, it's about $8.5 million. Sounds like a lot of money. It's not, and the feds used the adjective accelerated. It sounds like they are merely advancing this year's normal foreign aid to Cuba through UNICEF and the World Food Program. $8.5 million is nothing to sneeze at, but Cuba has been on the foreign aid list for years and years and years. 2 years ago, they got $6.5 million. The ambassador from Cuba testified in Foreign Affairs Committee, said it was all America's fault. He was asked some very probative questions. One MP, Leanne Rood, asked, how many political prisoners you got in Cuba, by the way? Oh, no, we don't have any, he said. You don't go to prison for your beliefs in Cuba. You go there for breaking the law, see? So they can play semantics, too, just because English is a second language.
But everybody understands $8.5 million.
That's money.
Yes, that's money. Exactly, yeah. Tom, as always, appreciate the conversations. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski is the managing editor at the Blacklock's Reporter, our only reporter-owned and operated newsroom that is covering the nation's capital. You can find more online, blacklocks.ca. I think you'll like what you find there. And Tom brings some of it to our show each and every Wednesday morning just after the 10 a.m. news. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, 20 shelter beds for women in Cambridge, not enough. You remember that old Caramilk commercial? I shouldn't make light of a really important conversation here, but it was them trying to get the Caramilk secret, right? 50 million, not enough. 75 million. Anyway, not enough. 20 beds, shelter beds for women in Cambridge. We'll check in on the progress made to date and why we need more. That's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It has been 1 year since YWCA Cambridge opened its women's homeless shelter. So how are things going with that women's homeless shelter in Cambridge? We find out as we're joined by Rosalind Gunn, who's the Director of Communications and Advocacy with YWCA Cambridge. Ros, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you very much for making the time. 1 year in, 20 shelter beds for women experiencing homelessness in Cambridge. How are things going?
Well, it has been quite a year. 1 year is certainly a milestone. But the thing we really want to highlight is just the stark realities that operating this shelter has brought to light for us. We've seen 160 turnaways since August. So that's 160 times a woman came to our door looking for services, and we were at capacity. We're seeing older and older women experiencing homelessness for the first time. Some months we're seeing up to 60% of our residents are over the age of 50. And so it's a milestone. We're really proud of what we've accomplished, having this shelter, getting it open and operating it for this year. But it's really bringing to light the fact that 20 beds is not nearly enough.
You talk about the milestone that it is, reaching a year, because if you could take us back, Roz, like the work that went into even getting to this point was rather significant.
Oh my gosh, yes. We spoke, and we're a small leadership team, but we spoke with every single elected representative who would speak with us. We made partnerships with other community organizations. We were spreading the word in the community. We were really trying to, what we had to do first actually was sound the alarm on the fact that women's homelessness exists, because it's so hidden. So, like the 2024 point in time count said 36% of the individuals counted, as experiencing homelessness were women. But we know because their homelessness is so hidden, the number is far greater. And even still, 36% of that point in time count was about 1,000 women. And so we were really trying to make people understand that women's homelessness exists, even if you can't see it, and they are very, very deserving of safety and security and support with rebuilding their lives.
You mentioned those 160 turnaways that you've experienced in this past year. That means 160 different times somebody was at the door and the inn was full, so to speak. That must just break the hearts of those trying to help these people in need.
Gosh, yeah, the emotional toll on our staff having to turn women away, and especially, in minus 30-degree weather or pouring rain, I cannot imagine the heartache that our staff are confronting on a daily basis, having to deal with that. And it's the system, right? It's the entire system that they are the ones who are bearing the brunt of.
Do you know, Roz, with those folks who are using those beds, I would suspect that it's not the same 20 people in that shelter every night. Do you follow them beyond the time they leave that shelter to see how they make out, where they go next, et cetera?
Yes, that's a great question. So in the year, we've served about 82 different individuals, unique individuals, and we have a full-time dedicated housing support worker. And so she stays connected with the women and gender diverse individuals who have been placed. So some of them, I think about 20% of our residents have been placed into either permanent housing or long-term care or culturally appropriate transitional housing, and our shelter worker does stay in touch with them. And even while they're in the shelter, we have a lot of built-in on-site supports and a lot of partnerships with other organizations. And so when women do leave our shelter, they already have those established community partnerships and relationships, and they know that they have that link with our staff as well.
What is the call to action for us 1 year into this shelter?
We have a big ask, honestly. So first and foremost, this is still a temporary location. So we are still working to find a permanent location for our shelter. And another need we've identified through operating the shelter is that there is a serious need for a low barrier 365 days a year drop-in. We need to see more transitional housing and housing with built-in supports that are dedicated to senior women as well as women-led families. All of these things are points along the housing continuum that are really sorely lacking in Cambridge at this point.
And how do we get there?
Well, that's the big question. Right now as a nonprofit, we have to be developers, surveyors, we have to be statisticians and strategic thinkers and planners. We have to do it all. And so we're speaking to every level of government that we can, and we're asking for them. You each have levers at your respective levels. What can you be pulling, and how can you support us in making sure that these services do make their way into Cambridge?
I'm glad you brought up those multiple levels of government, Roz, because obviously there are. I mean, we've got two right here with the municipality and then the region and then, of course, the province and the feds. But I've often described the charitable and nonprofit sector as really our nation's, and it's not unique to Canada, but it's kind of our dirty little secret, because you get left doing a lot of heavy lifting so that the government doesn't have to fund in certain areas. You pick up slack, you fill gaps, but you can't fundraise your way out of this problem.
Yes, that's a really good point you're raising. Yes, exactly. I mean, nonprofits make up the large portion of our care economy, and our care economy is what allows people to live their lives or age with dignity or ensure their kids are in adequate childcare and early learning. We're doing all of those things. And we're also, and it's not just, nice to have. This isn't just charity. We're a huge economic driver in our province and in the country. We employ hundreds of thousands of individuals, so there's the knock-on impacts of we're ensuring that everyone has access to what they need to have lives in which they can thrive. But there's also hundreds of thousands of workers who are providing those services and doing this care work and all of this charity work.
Keep up that great work, Roz. And thanks very much for making time for the show this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mike. Have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.
Rosalind Gunn is the Director of Communications and Advocacy with YWCA Cambridge. The message is pretty clear, and it's pretty stark, too. 20 beds is simply not enough, as YWCA Cambridge marks 1 year of operation with that 20-bed. And remember, it's a temporary shelter in a church, but those 20 beds, sadly, are not nearly enough. And I suspect, quite frankly, that we knew this going in, but a year now into the work, we can put some numbers behind it, right? 160 turnaways over the past year. And then let's look at the people who are showing up at this shelter, 67% of whom were aged 50 and older, often driven into homelessness by the gender wage gap, inadequate pensions, or the loss of a partner who was the primary earner. And then there's that need for a continuum that Roz and I talked about. 20% of those who have passed through this shelter have achieved what the YWCA Cambridge describes as successful outcomes, which means going beyond permanent housing to include long-term care, substance use treatment, and culturally appropriate transitional housing. So there are success stories to be shared, but the bottom line is 20 beds simply doesn't cut it. And I feel a little bad for the language I used, the dirty little secret, if you will. But I've long said this about, and I'm going to have to find new language, I guess, but our charitable and nonprofit sector. Because if you think about it, think of the number of, even if we just focus on homelessness right now, think of the number of local agencies that are working in that space. YWCA, the House of Friendship, the Working Center, SHOW, Supportive Housing of Waterloo. That's just off the top of my head. We could list more. I know we could. One Roof for Youth, right? All of these organizations exist not just in our community, but in communities across the land. And why do they exist? Because funding from upper levels of government is inadequate. Now, I know this opens up a whole big conversation about what would adequate funding look like and how much would we pay in taxes, because we don't want to pay all those taxes. But it's really fascinating to me. It's underappreciated because these types of agencies fill gaps through fundraising. So we donate because the cause means something to us, right? We're giving, quote unquote, giving our money away because we believe in the work being done here. Well, we could just have it taken off in taxes and have these things properly funded. But we don't do it that way. We allow all of these agencies to do all of this heavy lifting and move on to other business, like, I don't know, high-speed rail and bailing out Canada Post. Just a couple of ideas from the last conversation we had with the Blacklocks reporter. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about the concert coming up this weekend that will support our local veterans. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you have ever been in the past to one of our Farwell for Hire events, or pick your event around town, or maybe you just go to one of our local establishments that like to feature local bands and music, you have likely heard the unique vocal stylings of Something's Always Flying. They are a fantastic classic rock cover band, and they do so much more than just that. The lead singer and manager of the group, Stephen Ropp, joins me in studio. Steve, it is great to see you as always.
I am not the lead singer.
You mean
I'm the drummer.
You're the drummer.
You've
How can
been
I
there.
know?
You've seen this.
I have seen that. You're the weird guy with the kit in the back. I don't know why I went lead singer.
Yeah. I don't know either.
You provide a little bit of backup now and again.
I do, but Leah is definitely the lead singer.
Leah,
of
I'm
this
so
band.
sorry. I don't know why I said that. I do know why, because I made a bad note. But anyway, good to see you, as always.
It's always good to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And we are bringing on by phone this morning as well John Champion, who's the immediate past president of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 530 in Waterloo. John, good morning to you.
Good morning to both of you.
So, Steve, let's start with you, because it's the Rock the Roof concert this weekend at Branch 530 on Marsland Drive to help out this Legion. But give me the background on how Rock the Roof came together.
I'm also involved in a dart league here in KW, and when I got a phone call saying that, hey, our roof started to leak and it's destroyed our main floor where we play darts, and we can't go forward with the dart nights as they are presently. And immediately I went, whoa, what's going on? And then I dug a little deeper, found out they were having some trouble raising, getting the money together for their insurance and blah, blah, blah. So I put out our name with the band, and going forward from this spring thing, as we have dealt with before on the show, that will be held also at the 530 this year. To help this exact thing get more revenue in. But the bar staff at the 530 contacted me and asked me if we could do a fundraiser for the roof, and that's pretty much how it happened.
Nice. So, John, take me into the life of a member at the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 530 and the challenges maybe you're facing with a bit of an older building there on Marsland.
Well, it actually started about 10 years ago when we had our old building on Regina Street, and we ended up selling that one and moving into this one. We did like $1.6 million worth of upgrades to this building. But, the life of a flat roof is not all that long, and they are a real pain to fix and to track down where the actual leaks are. So over the last few years, we've had little leaks here and there, and we've had blockages in the downspouts, and, there's always problems with flat roofs. So when we moved, we were actually in pretty bad financial positions back then, and it actually solved a lot of our problems because we got a really good buck for the old building, and we ended up with some money in the bank. But through attrition and problems over the last few years, the money doesn't last forever. So now we're facing doing some more extensive repairs on that roof. We expected them to come 20 years down the road, and this is coming a lot sooner. And the storm that we had back in December, I guess it was, early January, that a lot of people had roof problems. It was very hard just to get the companies to come out and look at the roof. So the executive at the Legion has done a bang-up job on trying to get things organized and get the repairs done. And because the roof leaked, then that affected the flooring. It actually went through the floor down to the basement, so it affected the ceiling in the basement. So pretty extensive damage.
Damn this winter, eh? Like, come on. This winter's not been fair at all.
It's not.
Oh, yeah. It just keeps coming.
It does. It does. So what does it mean, John, to, be able to tap somebody on the shoulder, a resource like Steve and the band, like within the Legion itself, to say, hey, can you help out like this? What does it mean for somebody to step forward like this?
Oh, it's fantastic. Steve has been a godsend to us. He brought the dart leagues in a couple years ago when we really needed a cash influx. They're coming in the evenings when we used to be closed, so that's free money for us, basically. For them to step up and be willing to donate their time and energy into doing fundraising. Well, that's what the Legion is all about. It's about community, helping veterans and helping the community, helping the youth. So having somebody coming and helping us, it's fantastic.
Steve, let's talk a little more about that, because I mentioned at the beginning that if you've been to a Farwell for Hire event, I don't know, 3 maybe you've probably played at already, but there have been multiple. And I know that Something's Always Flying is always willing to step up in a manner such as this to support. Why? Why is that important to you guys as a band?
Karma.
You want St. Peter to just at the pearly gates walk right in, eh?
It's amazing how many doors it's opened, to be completely honest with you. We do a lot of this. We try to do 3 or 4 a year, and where we just kind of give of our time and effort, and the doors that it's opened is, there's no way I could even have we could not have been this far in as short a span of time without that.
So this weekend, I know the Saturday night show, you've already sold out.
Yeah.
Rock the Roof is sold out.
Yeah.
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 Maybe we need a matinee.
There you go. Oh. Second show, eh?
Wait, this is a 3 o'clock show. Well, 4 o'clock live music, but the doors open at 3 or the music starts at 3, but it's already a matinee, John. Come on.
Steve, you and the band have been together a while. Tell us a little bit more about Something's Always Flying, and, if anybody is interested in seeing you, maybe hiring you, how do they go about doing that?
We, again, with the 530, the Branch 530, we're going to be there with the spring thing. And I know we've spoken about this before. This will be our 3rd spring thing, fall ball kind of deal where we team up with Dana Kaye and the Remedy and Fire in the Valley. And they sell out. And so we're doing another one May 9th at Branch 530. And we expect that one to do exactly the same thing. More revenue for the branch, because they really need it. The amount of community work that they do, from veterans to youth, as John had spoken to, the Ladies Auxiliary, the cadets, all of the stuff that they do is expensive, and they don't have a revenue stream to help. They do more for veterans than any other entity in the region, and it's just important. It's important. My dad was in the Navy, so I kind of have a thing. He wasn't a war vet. He didn't do anything during wartime, but he definitely served, and a lot of my family serves as well, and have for years. And I just find it a really good thing. So for us, there's that. Of course, we're going to be around town for up until about June, and then we try to get away. We go to the beach and we go to trailer resorts and all that kind of thing. We try to get out of town, and then we come back in the fall and do things. We'll be at Montana's opening their spring concert series, which just started last year, which is fantastic. That's awesome stuff. We are doing we're doing a fundraiser for Victoria Quilts. I don't know if you know who they are.
I'm not familiar.
They are Victoria Quilts of Canada. They provide quilts for cancer patients free of charge. So if you go online to victoriaquilts.ca, you can, if you know somebody who has cancer, you can send them a quilt, and they will hand deliver it to them. They're all handmade, and they fund themselves. So when Leah announced that she had cancer, I was talking to another band, and it's the huge circle that we deal in.
And Leah is the lead singer, I'll remind you. Thank you very much. Yes.
And so I sent her a quilt, and when I found out how efficient it was, and then I found out that they were doing this all on their own, and like the emotion that came from Leah when she got her quilt was unbelievable, brought me to tears. And so I thought, you know what, this is a really good cause too. So in January, we're going to do a fundraiser at Dallas for them, a big one, big one. And I would like to encourage anybody who's been touched by cancer, or any of the people around town that would like to give of their time, or they would like to know more about it, to contact me about that, because it's going to be big.
So
I don't have all the details, but it's going to be big.
You're already planning 11 months in advance.
Yeah, because actually it started last year.
Good. I just want to make sure, because don't get confused. I know we're the end of this February, but we're already talking next January. Yeah. Something's Always Flying. Facebook, Instagram, you'll find them there.
Yep.
John, 5:30 in Waterloo. I mean, this obviously, you talked about the extensive damage and how much this helps. How are we doing? How are you keeping the lights on these days?
Oh, yeah. A lot of different revenue streams. Our membership has actually expanded a fair bit over the last little bit.
That's great to hear.
We should talk about that too, John.
The problem is we need to get the people out. They become members, but getting them out to events. We are doing a lot more live entertainment in the near future. We're trying to up that. The executive is doing a big changeover and getting some new blood into it, coming up with some new ideas. So it's going to be an exciting year at the branch with, like I said, a lot more entertainment.
Steve, you know something about that.
Yeah, so this is the 100th, this is their centennial for the entire Legion, Canada-wide. 1926 was their first year. And they are offering free memberships to anybody. You don't have to be a veteran. You don't have to be a child of a veteran, a grandchild of a veteran. You don't have to be involved in the military at all. You can become a member. And there are some specific perks to that. There's hotels perks, there's vacation perks, there's all. You just go on to waterloolegion.ca. You will see what's going on there. But they are offering free memberships this year because of their centennial. I believe they're up 30,000 already, and it's only February. So this is a big deal. As John was saying, their membership drives their revenue, and considering the amount of stuff that they do, the revenue is really, really important.
Absolutely. Well,
so they do have some stuff. They do have some stuff. So Kelvin, let me get this right here. March 21st, Kelvis and the Burning Love Band, which is an Elvis tribute night. April 4th, spring DJ and karaoke, bringing in the community, doing that kind of thing. Our stuff happening on May 9th for the spring thing. There's lots of stuff coming up, and it's going to continue. We're going to make sure that it continues. You can imagine how many people I know in the music industry, we will be pushing them that way and helping out.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. John, truly appreciate and admire the work that you do. Keep it up, and I look forward to seeing you soon at 5:30.
Right on.
John Champion joining us, past president of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch Number 530, Steve Ropp, drummer with Something's Always Flying. Rock the Roof, supporting our veterans this Saturday night. Listen, I know you've raised the money to help repair the roof. Don't blow the roof off the damn place, okay?
Well, that's what we're trying to do, but that means we have to repair it again. And
exactly. We don't want to do that either. Yeah. Keep up the great work. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
Steve Ropp with Something's Always Flying, joining us on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, following up on something we talked about on the show yesterday, potholes and snow clearing. I've got some advice for you, cities in the region. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Did that really say my views? It did. It's one of my favorite parts of being handed the keys to this studio and the permission to press the on button on this microphone, because I get to share with you my thoughts, my ideas, my views on things. And I want to go back to something we talked about on the show yesterday, because it seems we are still a little miffed about snow clearing in the region this winter. And we are currently quite miffed at the number of potholes and the lack of patching of said potholes. And I offered yesterday my unsolicited slogan to anyone who wishes to adopt it for the upcoming municipal election. Potholes and snow clearing. Run on that platform and do something about it, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find yourself elected when the election comes around in October. By the way, interesting note on that coming up as well. But my idea, first of all, that I wanted to share with you this morning, and I want to start with this. The folks whose job it is to plow our streets, clear our trails and the sidewalks that connect to schools and all of these different things, and the folks whose job it is to patch those potholes, I love you. I do. I admire the work that you do. Like, I sit in here in a climate-controlled studio, and you are out there dealing with, I can't even imagine the kind of crap that you have to put up with on a daily basis trying to do your job. I appreciate everything that you do. And I'm not saying that you are doing a bad job. It just occurs to me that perhaps we are under-resourced in these departments, right? Because there are way too many potholes for our liking on the roads right now. And I get freeze thaw. That's the cycle that creates them. And, timing is everything in that regard. And I get on the snow clearing side that it's been a brutal winter and you can only work so many hours in a day. On that side of things, I would like to think that we have the resources to hire more people to ensure. I mean, if our plows are not running 24/7 in a winter like this, trying to keep up or catch up, I think we got a problem. So what do we need to do to ensure that these plows are operating 24/7 if they're not already? And then if we have to talk about buying more equipment to deal with a winter like this, then maybe that's the conversation. Generally, I would like to know where you've got a big pot of money that is collected from taxpayers. I would like to know how that pot, or let's call it a pie, I want to know how it's divvied up. Because I can't help but wonder if we are putting too much money in one place and kind of robbing the money from the other place, which is a really important place to have the money, i.e. snow clearing and pothole repairs. Here is my unsolicited advice today for the fine folks at any of our municipalities. There are abundant staff on hand. I know this because we pay their salaries. Abundant staff in communications at every level of government in every municipality, townships included. Why not? Why not get them out there and put them in the cab of a snowplow and run a little video saying, hey, this is Donna. Her day started at 3 a.m. while you were still sleeping. Her job today is to plow Weber Street and Victoria Street and Ottawa, whatever Donna's route is in that plow, okay? And you can share this information. I don't think you can possibly over-communicate with the public at a time like this. I mean, you can create some AI cartoon characters like the impatient tiger if you want to, or you could actually, share this kind of information. There are so many ways to do that. I would be happy to share that through our platform here on the show. But get us out there. Take us inside what's going on. Here is the route. Here are the priority areas that are going to be plowed by Donna's plow and by Bill's plow and by Nancy's plow. I don't know why we wouldn't do that. Because, of course, we want the plow on our street all the time, but we know that's not realistic. I got off a beautifully wet expressway this morning and onto Trustler Road, and Trustler was a bit of a mess. But I understand at 6 o'clock in the morning, hey, it's my job to be careful out there, and I can handle that, right? But I think those updates would be critical and easy to provide. Same thing with pothole repairs. Everybody's fired up about Trustler Road. I'll bet there have been some. There might even be some happening right now, pothole repairs in the community. Tell us, show us, and let us know. Our pothole repair crews are on this street today, and they're going to this street next and the next street after that. Show us that the plan exists. So even though it's not on our street today, we know that it's coming. I'm not sure why we wouldn't do something like that. I think it's a really good use of time, and I think it would be invaluable to a somewhat frustrated community after a brutal winter and a pothole-filled false spring right now. Just an offer to you, municipalities across this region. Take advantage of the various platforms you have. Shoot some video, take some pictures, tell us. Use your communication channels to tell us exactly what is happening, where, and why. I bet you it goes a long way. By the way, that little note about the upcoming municipal election, there will also be a vacancy in Ward 5 in Waterloo. Jen Vasic, the current Ward 5 councillor, like Royce Bodley, the current Ward 2 councillor, has announced she will not be seeking re-election. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Next week, which importantly, for those of us winter weary, is March, if that helps at all. I don't know that it changes the weather, but it certainly gives us hope. Next week, from March the 2nd to the 8th, is Women in Aviation Week, and Mission Aviation Fellowship wants to make sure that the women who serve in critical roles in their organization are highlighted. Lindsay Sitzma is the Vice President of Impact and Strategic Projects at Mission Aviation Fellowship Canada and joins the show to talk more about it. Lindsay, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Before we get into the critical role that women play within MAF Canada, can you tell us a little bit more about Mission Aviation Fellowship?
Yeah, so Mission Aviation Fellowship, or MAF, is an international humanitarian organization, and we use small aircraft to reach some of the most isolated and cut-off communities on the planet. So we partner with more than 1,500 organizations globally to make sure that medical care, disaster relief, development support, missions workers, and practical resources are available to the people who need it most, people who would in many ways be unreachable if it wasn't for airplanes.
I remember a conversation some time ago with one of your pilots who had connections to our region here in the region of Waterloo, also a young woman. So obviously, having women at the controls of that aircraft is nothing new for MAF Canada.
No, certainly not. I mean, we have a long history of recruiting women. Our founding pilot in North America was a woman, Betty Green. So we have a long history of women trailblazers in the industry, and the flight school that we operate out west, Prairie Aviation Training Center in Three Hills, Alberta, actually has well above the national average of women enrolled and learning about aviation.
How does Mission Aviation Fellowship try to bridge the gap of, because really women are underrepresented in aviation for sure?
Oh, absolutely. Women are massively underrepresented in aviation. It is still one of the most male-dominated fields. I believe it's about 6% of pilots are women worldwide. I think it's maybe 15% of our air traffic controllers, and only 2% of aircraft maintenance engineers are women throughout the world. Canada does a little bit better. I think about 12% of the pilot's licenses that are handed out in Canada or earned in Canada are given to women, but it is still a massively underrepresented field in terms of women being at the forefront of the industry.
You touched on a couple of things there, Lindsay, beyond just pilots. And I think it's important to highlight that, too. When it comes to aviation and aviation careers, there is more to it than just the person who is flying that aircraft.
Oh, there's so many roles in aviation that are critical to the industry. It really is an entire ecosystem. You have the pilots, of course. You have aircraft maintenance engineers. You have dispatch. You have logistics. You have executives. You have air traffic controllers. You have customer service. Aviation is a massive industry. And there are so many just crucial places for women in all of those roles. And we really want to make sure we're highlighting that there is a gender gap in this industry, but there's also things that we can do about it, and we can bring awareness to it, and we can be much more intentional of making sure that we have women at the forefront of this industry.
How does Mission Aviation Fellowship do that in practice? How are you bridging that gap?
We try to be really intentional right from the early phases when people are thinking about their careers. We have a whole team of people who go and we talk to youth about the opportunities that there are in aviation, and we make sure we're really intentional about bringing those opportunities to women. Like I said, at Prairie Aviation Training Center in Three Hills, Alberta, we do train aviation, and we work really hard to make sure that enrollment is friendly to women. We have women in roles both as aircraft maintenance engineers and female instructors, so that we are doing our due diligence and making sure that there are women there, that women and young girls can see themselves within this field, and they can see people that look like them that are taking on these roles, and then being really intentional, make sure that we are recruiting and training for positions at the school. And then hopefully that will lead to just more and more women in the pipeline for future careers. They can serve overseas with us. We see so many amazing women who serve within our organization internationally, but you'll also receive just a great education that would allow women to go into the commercial industry or to go into bush pilot work or whatever that looks like.
What barriers are women facing in entering the aviation field?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest barriers for women I think it starts with the fact that there is just underrepresentation. I think that aviation has often been seen, it is a very male-dominated industry. So women, when they look into this industry, they don't see people that look like them or people that they can aspire to being. So I think that's one piece of it, is that we need to shift the culture. We need to bring women to the forefront and tell their stories so that our future women know that this is an industry they can be part of. Aviation can be expensive. It can be hard to get into in that regard, and that, it is expensive to train. But I think the underrepresentation combined with it being expensive, combined with, I don't know that we always do well enough in encouraging women to get into very technical industries. So I think aviation shows problems across multiple sectors that we have in terms of under-recruiting women for critical roles. And I think you see it more because for so long there were barriers to women getting in it. Aviation also can have, people perceive that it can have really complicated schedules, or it would be really hard to balance a family life with a career in aviation. But a lot of those assumptions are no longer true like they used to be, and there are amazing spots for women in this industry.
And isn't it interesting, Lindsay, that we have this conversation about being intentional, about attracting women to this vibrant career path, and we talk about the scheduling challenges that may exist, because still, even in 2026, the burden of those family schedules tend to fall on women in our communities.
It absolutely does. I mean, I think as a culture, we're trying to shift that narrative, and we're working hard to do it. And of course, again, this is a culture thing. It has traditionally been women who, yes, of course, they could have careers, but they still had to work a lot harder to balance their career life with having a home life. So, I mean, we need to do better with encouraging men that they can have stay-at-home careers if they want to, or that families can have these dual career options. But also with scheduling, there is a lot there's a lot that has been done in the industry that has recognized this and is working hard to make sure that this isn't a barrier for women any longer.
Where can people learn more about the work you do at Mission Aviation Fellowship Canada, Lindsay?
Yes, please go online. We have a great website, maf.ca. We would love to have people know more about what we do. And if you are a female out there listening, you can get in touch with anyone from our office. If you're interested in learning more about women in aviation and opportunities out there, we would absolutely love to speak to you. Love the conversation this morning. Thank you so much for making time for it, Lindsay. Thank you so much. Have a great day. You too. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye. Lindsay Sitzma is the Vice President of Impact and Strategic Projects at MAF Canada. Totally egocentric, self-absorbed here, but those just happen to be my initials. If you take out the M for Matthew, my confirmation name, always open to free shots at what the A might stand for, but it is the Mike Farwell Show. But maf.ca. Go to I wish it was my website. I should have, darn it. You know how much they might have had to pay me if I had first claimed the domain? Anyway, not to start riffing on goofy things in the midst of a really interesting conversation with Women in Aviation Week. Coming up next week in Mission Aviation Fellowship Canada is shining the spotlight. Just think back. The Betty Green in the 1940s was one of their first women in mission aviation. So you're talking an 85-year history now, thanks to Betty Green all those decades ago. And still today, women represent less than 10% of pilots globally. But Mission Aviation Fellowship Canada is dedicated to being intentional
to changing that, including their Prairie Aviation Training Center out in Alberta, which is preparing today's female pilots, for some of those demanding flight environments that Mission Aviation Fellowship is involved in. Again, if you want to learn more about the work that they do, how and why they do it, maf.ca is the website to visit. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you were with us at the very beginning of the show today, gosh darn it, thank you. I'll mention it again. I love my 9 a.m.ers, but you 11 a.m.ers, you're not so bad. I play favorites. There's something about the ears that are open the minute we start the show every day. Nonetheless, at the beginning of the show, I had reminded you that while I do my best to prepare and come to the show with ideas to share with you, I don't want to make it all about my ideas. I kind of crowdsource ideas here, and I want to give you the opportunity to share yours. So we started in that vein today, and then just before 11 a.m., I shared with you something that was on my mind following yesterday's show. Snow clearing and potholes. I thought that would be a great election platform, and I even offered my own unsolicited advice just before 11 a.m. today to our municipalities as a way to better communicate the work that is being done. Because we all know there are plow drivers who are exhausted right now because of how hard they've been working. And I've just been saying, show us. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm saying you have an opportunity, our cities do, to show us through the use of video, audio, photograph, whatever. Show us. Here is plow operator number 1 doing this route, and just give us a little bit of insight, post it to your social media, whatever. There could be a dedicated page for pothole repairs. I know there are online forms we can fill in to have potholes looked after, but why not tell us, here's where the pothole repair work's being done today, here's where it's being done tomorrow, etc. I know we always want it on our own streets, but it'll get there eventually. Here's where it's being done right now, and why we've chosen this spot first. It seems I struck a chord, and we're crowdsourcing even more, and I love it. Joan sends an email to Mike at 570news.com, says, you had great ideas about how the municipalities could affect the public perception about how they manage these irritants. Thank you, Joan. I'm glad to know you think the ideas were good. And then Joan adds some more. Number 1, get the 3 mayors in with the manager of roadworks and discuss these problems. I hope that's happening, Joan, but if it's not, great idea. And number 2, the 3 cities should adopt a rewards program for their employees to encourage them to identify and report potholes, roads not plowed, overgrown lawns, garbage on boulevards that sits for weeks, and just overall improvements they see that could be addressed as they drive around. The company I worked with before retiring had a program like this for years, and great ideas happened. I like where you're coming from, Joan, because it gives everybody a stake in their own community and in the work they do for it, right? Dennis sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. I've emailed our head guy for roads here in Wilmot where there are potholes. I've known him for years. The potholes were fixed within a few days. So there you go. The problem, Dennis says, is it's the same staff who do the potholes also do most of the snow plowing. I've thought of this. I've thought of this too. Like, it's easy to say we might need to increase our human resources, more people driving plows, but I don't know that plow drivers, plow operators grow on trees. And then Clinton, Farwell's Force member number 35, says, Mike, via email to Mike at 570news.com, I love the idea of doing a day in the life of a snowplow, and I think there's a great opportunity to take it one step further. And Clinton thinks I should be the one in that passenger seat with the plow driver telling you what it's like. Look, Clinton, I'm here for it. There's only one of me. There's only so much time. But I would be willing, if any of our municipalities want to give me the opportunity to sit in that passenger seat, I will take it. But it's got to be the early morning shift, because I got to be in that plow and then to this radio station by I might push it till 6:30, 6:45 one day, but I got to be here to get ready for the show at 9. So whoever gets the dark and early shift at like 3 or 4 a.m., I'll come out with you. But honestly, Clinton, I think this is what cities could do for us and share with us. But if you think it's better coming from me, by all means, put me in the passenger seat and I'll get out there. I had the great chance to do that with one of our transport truck companies years ago. It was offered, and then I never took it up. Took police up on the offer to go for a ride along, and I think there are all kinds of liability issues with that. Now, I don't know that I get to do ride-alongs with them anymore, but if a plow ride-along is a possibility in Cambridge, in Waterloo, in Kitchener, in Wilmot, say the word. I will show up dark and early, and I'll sit in that passenger seat. I know you're working hard. I'm just asking our cities and townships to over-communicate. I think there's a real opportunity here for a sometimes and somewhat frustrated public to learn more and maybe feel better. Like, yeah, the plow's not on my street, but look at where that plow is and look at how long that person's already been on shift. I think there's an opportunity here for our municipalities. I think, based on this music, there is also an opportunity for us to present to you on this Wednesday, the 25th of February, your Farwell report. And it's a wrap for a decades-old business at Stone Road Mall in Guelph. Cinema One, which sold DVDs and Blu-rays of new movie releases and cult classics, has officially closed its doors. It first opened back in 1992 and moved to 3 different spots in Stone Road Mall. At one time, there were 11 other locations. Now, the last remaining location is in London, and Cinema One's online catalog of movies and TV shows are still available for purchase. But online, the physical location in Stone Road Mall has closed. CFL fans can get their fix in Guelph this summer with the World Cup taking over BMO Field. The Toronto Argonauts are shifting their operations to Guelph. The Argos are going to start with their traditional training camp residency in May, and then they'll stay in Guelph through July. Now, no regular season CFL games will happen in Guelph, but a preseason tilt between the Argos and the Hamilton Tiger Cats is scheduled for late May at Alumni Stadium. How long have you lived in Hespeler? We've got a regular caller to this show, Hespeler Johnny. Johnny, how long you lived in Hespeler? Maybe so long that you don't remember it was once its own community before Hespeler, Galt, and Preston amalgamated to form Cambridge. That was back in 1973. Well, Hespeler is about to host a reunion to celebrate 125 years. Hespeler was incorporated as a town back in 1901, and by 1906, residents were organizing its first reunion. That continued every 20 years until 1996, when it was decided that the reunions should happen every 10 years instead. The 125th Hespeler reunion event happens from July the 10th through July the 12th. Mark it down. 125 years for Hespeler this summer. And you are not going to believe this, but an activist has set a new world record by literally hugging a tree for 72 consecutive hours. Trifina Muthoni of Kenya held the previous record at 48 hours, but that was eclipsed by a man who hugged a tree for just over 50 hours. Now, the 22-year-old Muthoni is back, shattering the 50-hour record and setting the new mark of 72 consecutive hours. Muthoni said the world needed more than symbolism. It needed endurance, it needed consistency, and it needed proof that care for the planet is not momentary. I don't know. The whole thing is a little sappy, if you ask me. But all of Muthoni's friends were rooting for her. The whole thing, though, hugging a tree for 72 hours, that sounds a little shady to me. But the Guinness Book of World Records has verified it. If this leaves you pining for another record, Muthoni says she may branch out for her next attempt. Hugged a tree for 72 hours. Hey, I'm here all week. Try the veal. That's your Farwell report for this Wednesday morning, the 25th of February. An update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about our neighbor to the south and how difficult it is for us as a nation to deal with that neighbor to the south. But how best might we deal with the neighbor? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just a real quick note before we dive into the conversation about dealing with a neighbor such as the United States in the current state that the United States is in. Matt's lead story in that news update about the funding that the city of Cambridge is providing to the Cambridge Food Bank. Great news all around. But it reminded me that I received secondhand news, if you will, last evening from a good friend of mine who said that she had been told that I had said some unkind things about the Cambridge Food Bank, and that was the narrative that was sort of circulating through the food bank in Cambridge, and that hurts my heart. I mean, first of all, why would I ever say anything unkind about any food bank? I mean, well, I can't imagine what would motivate me to do such a thing, but especially the Cambridge Food Bank, where I had the chance, I don't know, a little over a year ago to tour through and meet all the great people working there and learn about their programs, and they were fantastic. And I even got, what was it? Was it pie, cake, muffins, banana bread? It was banana bread. I figured it out eventually, but they made some special for me, and I was like, it was one of the nicest afternoons. And anyway, all of this is simply to say, like, look, it's going to happen. I guess, you know, there's sort of that telephone game where, oh, did you hear what Farwell said on the show? And then by the time it gets back to the folks at the food bank, it's like, oh, Farwell said something unkind about us. No. I mean, I've said some unkind things, but if you hear that and it doesn't make a lot of sense to you, just could you ask me? I don't want the fine folks working at the Cambridge Food Bank to be walking around doing their great work every day, thinking that I'm whizzing all over that great work. I whiz all over things, but not the food bank. Not the food bank. Anyway, it kind of bummed me out because they're great folks. And I remember my visit well, and I really appreciate everything that they do. So, hey, if it sounds like something I would not say, hey, check in with me. And I'll own it if I said something bad about anything, but I didn't say anything bad about the Cambridge Food Bank. And it hurts my heart that folks thought that I did. Gosh darn it. Okay. Got that out of my system. Keep up the good work, Cambridge Food Bank, and way to go, City of Cambridge, for offering some support as they move to a new location. Way to go. What I want to talk about now is that fella who delivered. I mean, has he finished with the State of the Union yet? Is the 108 minutes up the longest State of the Union in the history of States of the Union? But we know that U.S. President Donald Trump has presented a series of rather unique challenges to us here in Canada as the closest ally, nearest neighbor, biggest trading partner. Take your pick. So how do we, as a nation, navigate dealing with this guy? Charles Conta is a professor in the Department of Political Science and the director of the Niagara Community Observatory at Brock University, and joins us for a conversation about it. And Charles, when we look at a president, our nearest neighbor's country, who is rather erratic, to say the least, what challenges does this pose for Canada?
You know, Mike, not just erratic, but also belligerent. It's a whole new level of tension. I call it crossroads, right? We're talking about an existential crossroads that Canada is facing. But the reality is, when I wrote the article for the conversation that's out there, what I wanted to call readers' attention to is the fact that, yes, it is an existential moment. It is a crisis. Our neighbors have become belligerent, they're erratic, unpredictable. But Canada is not without agency or without resources or without room for maneuver, right? Canada has had 200 years of practice dealing with our neighbors to the south. And so I just wanted to call attention to some of the resources, how Canada can navigate the crossroads better still, the existential crossroads that the nation is facing today.
And I think this is an important message because many of us here in Canada can feel rather overwhelmed by this much larger, more powerful neighbor to the south. So what agency do we have in Canada? What can we call upon?
And, feeling overwhelmed is reasonable, Mike, because the reality is that demographically, as a population, they are 10 times larger than Canada. And by extension, economically, they are 10 times larger than Canada. And in terms of our trade relations, look, 70%, more than 70% of Canada's export goes into that market. And Canada imports about 59% from that market. So the nature of the relationship is such that the stakes are pretty high for Canadians. And so I understand that feeling of, call it vulnerability, call it entrapment. It's real. It's true. But the reality is also, Mike, Canada is a G7 nation. Canada has global influence. The problem is, though, over the past, especially the past 100 years or so, maybe less, Canada has become, a bit too relaxed with the cozy flow of trade between the two countries. We built sort of the architecture of our economy around sort of just this convenient geographical proximity. And I hate to say this, Canada went, kind of lazy, complacent, and relaxed. It was working well. But we've seen the vulnerability, we've seen the shakiness of that, and the crossroads that we're now going through, Mike, means that Canada has to rethink its whole strategy. And thankfully, McCartney gets this, right? And so what I suggested in this article, three things. First, that Canada really ratchet up its game on economic diversification. Now, renewing trade ties with China is just an example of that. Love them or hate them, the reality is that it's a massive economy. It's a great power economy. Canada does a lot of trade with them, especially in agriculture. So Canada gets that, and we kind of get that engine flowing again with this trip to China. But beyond that, engage across the Atlantic with the friends in Europe, reach across the world. Canada has a lot of stuff to offer the world, and it's about moving beyond this complacency of bilateral ties with the United States, as important as it is. And Mike, it will continue to be important, but to think beyond that and really diversify your game. I also suggest that, look, Canada is a middle power. Canada has been punching well beyond its weight in the global space. The architecture of global governance, from the World Trade Organization to the UN and other, what I call platforms of governance, Canada has a voice. Canada has influence. And I think it's about really strengthening the core geopolitically of that influence, because the more friends you have, the more buffers you have against the whiplash, political whiplash, policy whiplash, erratic whiplash of the Trump regime. So that's a very important thing that Canada has to do. Again, science that kind of gets that. But the last bit, Mike, this is really close to my heart. Canada has some housekeeping to do. Domestically, we have to clean things up. Our interprovincial trade flows is, I hate to say this, pathetic. Right? We basically have 13 economies in this country, right? We have all these provincial trade buffers that we need to clean up. And experts are saying, folks in my field are saying, if we clean up those trade barriers interprovincially, that would ratchet up our GDP right there. Not even talking about international trade yet. So we need to take care of international and domestic trade barriers within Canada. But another big deal, and I wrote about this in a book chapter and in some other article for the conversation, Canada has the resource endowments to play to the economy of the 21st century. Our critical minerals deposit is the envy of the world. And, just being able to build the innovation ecosystem around that, build a supply chain around that, will position Canada with a massive leverage that the Trump administration understands, our European friends understand, potential partners understand. And so I think for the next little while, especially now that CUSMA is up for negotiation, one of the things that Canada will have to be doing is really paying close attention to building our innovation ecosystem, our supply chain ecosystem around critical minerals. This is the new game in town, Mike. This is where the economy is going in terms of renewable energy and electrification. And Canada has the resources, the critical resources that the world is thirsty for. And our folks, our friends to the South understand it. The Trump regime gets it. And being able to put a house in order would mean we are going into CUSMA from a position of strength. And it's very important psychologically and strategically that Canada goes into this negotiation from a position of strength. Trump can smell fear and can exploit it. That is the reality. We know this. We know this from his first term, and we know this going into this negotiation. So how we strengthen our game domestically, how we play our game internationally, how we play our game in terms of diversification, middle power geopolitics, these are all the different elements that I pay attention to and suggest that we don't want to go in with that sense of vulnerability and angst and anxiety, but rather from a position of strength. That is what Trump respects. That's what the Americans understand, and that's a game we have to play, Mike.
Echoes of Mark Carney's speech at Davos.
That's it. He really nailed it.
Charles, I truly appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure always.
Charles Conta is a professor in the Department of Political Science at Brock University. And he says if we, as a nation, want to stand up against an erratic and belligerent neighbor to the south, we have to show a position of strength. And three big pieces will be part of this. First, we must economically diversify and geopolitically build some strategic resilience. Second, we should draw from our own record of championing a rules-based order globally. And third, how many times have we heard this? Let's loosen those interprovincial trade flows and update those outdated regulatory frameworks. But that will give us an opportunity to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump from a position of strength. As I said, it sounds like echoes of Prime Minister Carney's speech at Davos. Obviously, none of these things happen with the flip of a switch, right? It's not going to happen overnight, so we'd have to be patient. But do you believe in our ability to accomplish these things? Frankly, do you believe in Prime Minister Carney's ability to accomplish these things and go into these renegotiations for CUSMA elbows up, if you'll forgive the turn of phrase? Because I've heard many of you say our elbows have been down and have been down for quite some time. We'll take your calls right after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Our critical minerals deposit is the envy of the world. And just being able to build the innovation ecosystem around that will position Canada with a massive leverage that the Trump administration understands, our European friends understand. And so I think for the next little while, one of the things that Canada will have to be doing is really building our innovation ecosystem around critical minerals.
Can we meet the President of the United States in the renegotiation of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement with elbows up from a position of strength? Charles Conte, a professor in the Department of Political Science at Brock University, thinks we can. His ideas very much reflect what Prime Minister Carney talked about in his widely hailed and applauded Davos speech. But none of these things is going to happen overnight. And maybe we just go back to what Ontario Premier Doug Ford had to say, and that is no deal is better than a bad deal. And the sooner we try to get something done, if we rush into it, we might end up with a bad deal after all. What we have to remember, of course, at all times is the person with whom we are dealing in the United States. And that, of course, is Donald Trump. And I don't know how much of the State of the Union address of President Trump that you paid attention to last night, but I continue to find myself in absolute awe of this man. And I don't mean that in a good way at all. I am, quite frankly, gobsmacked at the ego and the belief in himself. Like, kudos to anybody that believes that much in themselves, but such a misguided individual who just, as a leader, I don't think provides the example that any of us should want to follow. Here is where his 108-minute State of the Union address last night took a pretty sharp detour. The man pulls no punches when it comes to his political foes. I'll try to resist using the word enemies, but those opposite Donald Trump are absolutely treated like a speck of dirt on the sidewalk. And there was a standing ovation here. He encourages people to stand. But that went on for over a minute. I've edited out that, you don't need to hear all the applause, but I'm telling you now, there was a minute of it, just so we can get to the point of this rather sharp detour in the State of the Union.
So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
I'll remind you that that is the State of the Union address in the United States. I don't know that it's meant to be adversarial. Listen to what's going on there. And this is supposed to be the example for the world to follow. This is the image that Donald Trump, as president of the United States, would like to put forward. Holy moly is all I have to say from where I'm sitting today. Ron is on the phone with us. Good morning, Ron.
Morning, Mike. Hey, listen, I take exception to something you said there. You said Donald Trump was a leader. I don't find him to be a leader at all. If anything, he's a self-grandizing individual. I think you mentioned that he thinks a lot of himself. And that's all he thinks about is himself, nobody else. And that's not what a leader does. A leader puts everybody else first, and it's certainly not him. But back to the thing about Mark Carney, I think we have the right man as Prime Minister at the right time. He seems to be less political and more interested in making sure that Canada survives, making deals around the globe. And when Trump first started talking about canceling the deal between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S., and he wanted to add tariffs, I said in our household, you know what we need to do? We need to find other people to trade with, and I think Carney's doing a great job with that.
Ron, appreciate the call today. Really good to hear from you. And point taken on the use of the word leader when it comes to Donald Trump. He was elected to lead, but I could not agree more with your sentiments that he does not act in the manner that any leader should. Maybe that makes this a good time, just ahead of our noon update and open phone lines for Talkback, to remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon. We could argue that the President of the United States is, but only argue it. We might not agree. But in this case, I think we're going to agree that this North American Hockey League team, Les Bataillons Saint-Hyacinthe, are not jackwagons at all. Imagine being June Johnson, who was driving from the United States to her home in Quebec City along a darkened Quebec highway when she lost control of her car, flipped upside down into a ditch. And within seconds, this, what should have, could have, likely would have been a traumatic experience, turned into a blessing of disguise. Within seconds, there were people outside that vehicle asking, "Are you okay?" And when she answered, "Yes, I'm okay," these people's arms reached into the vehicle, unstrapped her seatbelt, and safely removed her from said vehicle. They were members of that hockey team, the North American Hockey League team, who just so happened to be on their way home from a game. They saw her flip her car. They reached into her vehicle with their own hands to extract her and make sure that she was okay, then waited with her until emergency responders could arrive on scene. The hockey team that saves a woman who rolled her car in a ditch in Quebec. Not everybody is a jackwagon. We will get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then open phone lines for your Talkback Hour coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Every day from noon until 1, we open the phone lines so we can hear directly from you. You want to reflect on an issue we've discussed on the show or bring something that's on your mind to the table. We are all ears. You make the call, we'll answer. And let's get right down to it. Brett is going to start us off today. Good afternoon, Brett.
Good afternoon, Mike. A few points from the last segment of the show before noon. First off, enjoyed listening to your guest from the University of Brock University. But I thought that with our magnanimous leader, Prime Minister Carney, all the interprovincial trade barriers would be gone by Canada Day 2025.
Yeah, he missed that mark pretty wildly.
The calendar today, it's the 25th of February 2026 with no end in sight.
Yes, correct.
So there's a little bit of an issue there. And while there was, your last portion of the segment discussed your disdain for the conduct of President Trump in last evening's State of the Union address, I'm not going to defend the man's conduct or character, but I would like to remind you that it was not in the chamber last night where a member of the 14th Waffen SS Grenadier Division was celebrated. That was in our House of Commons under Prime Minister Trudeau and the Liberal government. So if you would like to discuss deplorable conduct in legislative houses, I think there is nothing to be said about what happened last evening.
Well, but Brett, do we need to do whataboutisms here? Because we did talk about the grave and egregious error made by Prime Minister Trudeau at the time. And now we're talking about President Trump's conduct. We don't have to say one excuses the other, right?
No, but we shouldn't necessarily speak from a pious position if we have a checkered past in our own House of Commons.
But we did talk about what happened in our House of Commons and how awful it was. We did that. That was, how long ago's news, and now today's news is the deplorable conduct of the president.
Mike, what do you think is controversial about any member of Parliament, of government, focusing on their own citizens' needs before foreigners' needs? I think that's the role of government.
I don't think
role of anyone in government. And isn't it shameful if you're not willing to stand and celebrate protecting your own people's interests ahead of that of foreign nationals?
I don't think, Brett, that President Trump cares about anybody's needs other than his own. I truly mean that. He does not care about the American citizens at all. He cares about Donald Trump. That's it.
And why do you say that?
Well, because his actions tell me that.
Which actions? What specifically causes you to have that level of, you might think that he doesn't care particularly for sub-members of American society.
No, I mean exactly what I just said. I mean it precisely how I said it. He cares about nobody but himself.
Okay. And what makes you think that?
He's a narcissist. He is a narcissist. His behavior is narcissistic, and that leads me to the conclusion that he cares not for anyone outside of his own person. Not his wife, not his children, nobody. He cares about Donald Trump. That's all.
Okay. All right. But regardless of his own narcissistic tendencies, you still would stand with the position that it is not shameful, or it is right for elected representatives to focus on the needs of U.S. citizens or non-Canadian citizens before that of their own domestic population.
I did not say that. I never said that. Not for one second did I say that.
You were calling out him for looking at members of the Democratic Party refusing to stand.
No, I'm not.
And celebrate. Yes,
no, I'm not. See, Brett, you can interpret this however you want, but I'll tell you, that is not conduct that is going to move any agenda forward, period. Right? Why are we his conduct was deliberately adversarial. I think he comes from a position that is worth discussing, but his manner, the manner in which he delivers it, completely unacceptable and, quite frankly, is not going to move us in any direction in a positive way.
I appreciate your perspective. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Brett. It's good to hear from you today. That's all there is to it. It's as simple as that. There's absolutely a case to be made for how we approach the citizens of our country and those who may not be here legally. Absolutely. But you want to build bridges or you want to throw hand grenades? And the president threw some hand grenades last night. I got very little time for it. Preston Paul, Farwell's Force member number 45. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I try not to use the hate word, but that president, I don't even like to say president, that Trump, I hate him with every being of my fiber of my being. He's a clown show. He's a convicted felon. He's a pedophile. And that last caller, they think that he is all right and is doing great. And I just cannot understand. My brain hurts when people try to defend him. I just don't understand it, Mike. You are bang on with your assessment.
All right, Paul. Well, I appreciate you weighing in today. And, again, that is my assessment on it. I think we can disagree on approaches. We can disagree on policies. But if we want to move forward, then, again, I will say build bridges instead of tossing hand grenades. And that, anyway, the behavior and the smug look on the face, it just, we know who he is. He has shown himself to be exactly who he is. And it's simply not productive. Simple as that. Kyle, good afternoon.
Still waiting for him to end the war in Ukraine because he says it's going to take 24 hours. But that will never happen. Because
4 years now. 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, that'll never happen because you got a country that's been in more wars post-World War II than any other country in the world. So, but that wasn't why I was calling. I was calling because of the aviation thing in women. Did you know that one of my idols is actually Amelia Earhart?
I did not know that, but that's a very good idol to have.
It is. It's tragic what happened, but I don't know if you ever knew this or not, but some of the airplanes that they actually had were back in the 20s and 30s. They did a lot of air racing. And, some of the air races, whether it was within North America or who could travel around the world fastest or whatever, there's always these big prizes and stuff. And before she did that big journey to, I think she's trying to go to Japan or one of the places before they lost contact with her, she did a lot of air races. And I thought it was pretty cool. I forget the name of the airplane. It could have been a de Havilland. I could be wrong, the British version. And they were, back in the 20s, were hitting like 300, 400, even like 450 miles an hour. And I'm just thinking back then, barely any instruments. You're working off a radio. Pretty cool stuff. So I just want to give my 2 cents on it. I thought it was pretty interesting. And I've always had respect for women that have always pushed and tried to get into aviation, no matter what role it is. But I've always enjoyed it. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right, Kyle. Appreciate the call. Glad you enjoyed the segment on women in aviation. Next week is Women in Aviation Week. And we had a good chat today with Mission Aviation Fellowship Canada about the bridges they are trying to build to encourage more women into aviation as a career. Grant is next on Talkback. Hello, Grant.
Hi. You're hilarious.
What did I don't think anything funny has happened in the past 13 minutes, has it?
I like your... No, you know.
You like the cut of my jib. I get it, Grant. I appreciate it.
And, what else? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that thing that was going on, I think it was in BC a couple of weeks ago about that individual that was that changed his sex from age 14.
Holy cow, Grant, you are just like revisiting the past, eh? I guess it's not too far in the past, but the Tumbler Ridge shooting and the shooter, yes.
Yeah.
In transition, yes.
Yeah, I think maybe he tried to get some counseling, and maybe he wasn't able to get some counseling, and there probably should be a rule or a law of some sort at age 14 to not change your sex.
Well, Grant, we're getting into interesting territory here, and I'm always here for the discussion. In fact, I think it's not. Is it Europe wide? I'm going off the top of my head here, but certainly, if not Europe wide, some European nations have brought in age restrictions or limitations. You have to be this old before you begin taking any of the medications that are part of your transition. I'm certain, I'm confident in saying that. I don't know if it's European wide, but that is happening in some parts of the world. I think where we are at here in Canada right now, irrespective of the debate, if you will, over when it's okay to begin the process of transitioning, where we're at with Tumbler Ridge is, I mean, it's too early in the story still. I know we want to have a nice tidy bow tied on it and come up with an answer and put it in a box and move on. But I think there's a lot still to uncover here. And the lack of mental health supports that were available to that young person in that community still remains a conversation point, even all these days after that terrible shooting in Tumbler Ridge. Brenda is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Brenda.
Good afternoon. With regard to Trump, well, my opinion of him is very low. In my opinion, he's a narcissistic, psychopathic dictator, and he's up there along with the dictators of the world, as far as I'm concerned. And it's more expensive now, things like pricing, groceries and stuff, according to what's been reported now, than when he was in office, previous to him coming in office, even though he had said many times he was going to bring things back down and that. But anyway, that's my opinion of him. He's up there with Hitler.
Well, all right, Brenda. There have been comparisons made, that is for sure. We are living in very interesting and unfortunately hyper-partisan political times. I wish we could find a way. You know, if you'll forgive me, I'll go this direction. I mean, how can you describe Prime Minister Carney right now as anything but a centrist because he's bringing people from the other side over to his side? I don't love floor crossing. I'm not trying to defend that. But clearly, a prime minister that represents one color is seen as open-minded enough to attract MPs of the other color. And you can be sure that ain't happening in the United States. That's how far removed from the center President Trump is. And I find that incredibly unfortunate. And that's a very carefully chosen soft word to describe the mess that it is in the States right now. This is the Mike Farwell Show. It's your Talkback Hour. Phone lines are open to you on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is your daily Talkback Hour where any issue, your issue, can be put on the agenda. Or maybe you just want to reflect on something we've talked about on the show today. Always happy to engage in those conversations. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. John is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. I just wanted to add some 2 cents into that caller 2 callers ago, Brett or Brent?
Brett, who called to start the Talkback Hour, yes?
Yeah, he was asking about how Trump's protecting Americans, and you said he doesn't care about anyone but himself, and I have to totally agree. There's some quick facts that people should know. The U.S. had almost no job growth in 2025. The voters are saying house prices are way too high, and Trump says he wants them higher. He said blue-collar jobs are going to boom. He's actually outsourcing the jobs now. And health insurance is more expensive now. So I don't know what he's talking about, helping Americans. He's definitely not doing that. He's warmongering, and he's just accepting money from people who want war.
John, appreciate the perspective today. I have to be honest that I don't follow closely enough to be able to fact check on the fly the statistics that you shared, but I appreciate you sharing them. I am of the understanding that things are not exactly rosy economically in the United States right now for its citizens, but I will go back to my position that absolutely Donald Trump cares about nobody other than himself. This is my sincere belief, because I think he wanted to ascend to this office so he could have the office. I think he wants to use this office and will continue to use this office to further his own interests. It's as simple as that. It's the way that I see it from his behaviors and every indication, aside from what seems to be his failings due to his age, physically and otherwise, but his only interest seems to be in himself. Narcissistic tendencies just ooze out of the man. Jason, you're next on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I'm calling in because everybody's calling in and bashing on Trump. I'm not a Trump fan, but I'd like to talk about, I think it was Ronald and the other people that are Carney apologists. Carney is not doing a good job. He said he would get elected and he would make a deal with Trump, and now he's not even trying to make a deal with Trump. So just a quick fact, if we go out and make deals all over the world, it won't be a fraction of the deals that we're going to lose if we don't firm up a deal with the U.S. It's 85% of our trade. So all these people that are retired and don't notice that the economy's crashing, that's wonderful, but your kids and grandkids will have no jobs if we don't get a deal.
Jason, I don't disagree that a deal is important, but you probably heard Premier Ford say the other day, and I don't know that I disagree with him, that no deal is better than a bad deal, and we might have the opportunity to get a better deal as we play the waiting game a little bit. And I will also concede, I think you're onto, like when you say that Prime Minister Carney hasn't done a great job, I confess to a little bit of disappointment here, because it seemed like we were going to move at the speed of light, and we are certainly not moving at that speed.
I can comment because my company makes presses for manufacturing plants. We haven't sold a press in Canada in 5 years. Now, and all you see is billions of dollars leave here and go to the U.S. With all respect to Doug Ford, like, I think, what does he have? High school education, and he sold hash or something? I don't care what he says. No deal is worse than a bad deal, because no deal is no deal, and nobody is going to invest $1 billion in Canada with no deal. I'm telling you, there's billions of dollars of presses that need to be built in manufacturing plants, and all these companies around the world are saying, do we put the plant in the U.S., do we put it in Canada, do we put it in Europe? Because we don't have a deal, nobody is going to put a plant here. Like Stellantis or whatever moved, they had $1 billion to retrofit a plant. Instead, they went to the U.S., and they're going to build a new plant for $13 billion. So it's childish to listen to Doug Ford about anything economics. Right, he's just some sort of hayseed when he talks. He's just sort of like a Canadian Trump.
Who are we going to listen to? Like, what are we going to do? You want just
economics, business people with MBAs.
What about doesn't Mark Carney hold those credentials?
No, he's a banker. He works for the government. He doesn't know anything about that stuff. I mean, listen to the Prime Minister when he was over in England during their crisis. She said our economy dove, and you can tell right now that he's not doing anything to help, because he should be down talking to Trump and getting whatever deal we can. Like, literally, we're trying to finish a job quickly to send it to the U.S. because we don't know what crazy stuff he's going to do with Kuzma, right? So I'm telling you, Carney is not. That's great. He went to Harvard. If he knew about business and investment, or maybe he doesn't want to help Canada, he needs a deal. So I can tell you for sure. I got 25 years of business consulting, MBA degrees. I can tell you from talking to the business people that are going to invest billions of dollars, they're not going to do it in Canada with no deal. If we lose Kuzma, we're done. So all these boomers that have their pensions and their house paid off, they don't notice this. But the only job growth we've had in Canada is the government, and that's an expense. Once the auto industry fails in Ontario, our number one GDP contributor is going to be government employees. You can't run an economy off expenses to taxpayers.
All right, Jason, I got to run to get the news, but I love where you're coming from. I appreciate your perspective and your expertise. Maybe you want to respond to that as we continue Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Very quickly, I want to share this with you because I know that you are as interested as I am in hearing some responses to our call from just before the break about how poor a job Prime Minister Carney is doing and how we need to get a deal. Billions of dollars at stake, billions and billions, tens of billions here in Canada if we don't get that new Kuzma deal worked out. And I hear you, and I appreciate that expertise. And I haven't loved the job that's been done federally since Mark Carney. He seems more concerned about recruiting his way to a majority than getting some of these other bigger issues sorted out. And he has missed wildly that deadline to open up interprovincial trade. It's not as easy as he thought it was going to be. So back to the phones in just a moment. But I was just out in the little kitchen area here at the station. One of my coworkers stopped by and said, boy, as if we didn't have enough snow, eh? And I mentioned this yesterday morning and didn't get a chance to finish off the point. I think one of the reasons, aside from all the snow and all the cold and the relentless nature of it, right, we really haven't had much in the way of thaws through this winter. But I believe one of the main reasons we're so tired of it is because this is the fourth month. November the 9th was our first snowfall. So we had snow November, December, January, now into February, coming up on March. Like, it's 4 months out of, we've got 8 months left for the other 3 seasons. And that's if the snow were to disappear tomorrow. So it has been a tough slog. And I don't know what kind of summer we need to make up for this, but 4 months of snow/winter this year without a let up in between. Once it started in November, the snow has not gone away. We got 6 centimeters overnight last night, and our buddy Kitchener Cooney from Environment Canada says that brings us to 244 centimeters of snow so far this year. The record for one winter's or one season's snowfall in the region of Waterloo is 249.4 centimeters. So we are 5.4 centimeters away from setting 5.5 centimeters. We'd have to go over 249.4. 5.5 centimeters away from setting a new snowfall record. It started in November. Enough is enough. All right, back to the phones. Mike is with us, Farwell's Force member number 37. Good afternoon, Mike. You're on Talkback.
Hey, Mike. Like Jay and others, I'm a little disappointed in Mark Carney, but given the circumstances, I think he's done a reasonable job. I don't think you can trust Trump, even if you had an agreement, because the next day he'd get off his throne at night and have a tilt about something, and he would be he would impose a tariff, ignore it. The EU is going through a similar situation. However, what Jay, or what was the name, I can't remember, was illustrating.
It was John, yeah, just before the break.
John, right, was illustrating was the problem with Canadian businesses. They've relied too much on the USA, as our government has, and encouraged them that we don't. You wouldn't run a business where 70 or 80% of your goods go to one company. I learned that I have a bunch of initials behind my name too, Mike, from Laurier Northwestern. And when I got accepted into the Northwestern MBA program, my dad, who had Alzheimer's, and he told me I got my master's degree in BSing and arse kissing. So it doesn't matter how many degrees you have here. The playing field has changed because of Trump. He clearly wants to bring all the manufacturing back to the United States, and he doesn't care about Canada. So we have to, in a relatively short period of time, find some other trading partners, get the best deal we can. But I don't think even if we have that deal, we have Kuzma in place right now, and we have a whole bunch of stuff in place right now. And Trump gets up every morning and he says, what chaos can I cause? So even if we had a deal, I don't think Trump would honor it, Mike. And that's my thoughts.
All right, Mike, thanks for weighing in. Good to hear from you today. Next, we'll go to Walter on Talkback. Hello, Walter.
Good afternoon. Yes, I agree with that last caller that he's not going to honor anything. So, as long as he's got idiots like, that Banyan or whatever his name is in his ear, he's a troublemaker right from the word go. And also, that speech that he gave last night at the White House, I cannot believe how he can just stand up there and blatantly lie about everything when all the numbers are completely contrary to what he's saying. And nobody calls him out about it. Nobody, other than the Democrats, and so it's, we got a long slog ahead here, I mean, I think that Carney's doing a fantastic job with what he's had to deal with. He's over in India, Asia, wherever, this week trying to rustle up some more business, and that's a good thing. That's what he's got to do. He has to get as many new customers as possible, in my eye, because you can't rely on, that guy with the orange skin. Okay, Mike, thanks.
Thanks, Walter. Appreciate you weighing in. Jersey Bill is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Billy.
I'm so happy so many people watched that wonderful speech last night and could react to it. Personally, I can't stand him so much. I turned it on for a few seconds. I just couldn't do it. And, and in my head, I could just rerun everything he's already said because essentially it was just one big rerun. One thing in reference to the first caller, Brett or whatever his name was, the idea is it's not that the people who didn't stand up were choosing the undocumented immigrants over their own people. The point is, it's a constitutional point, and that is that everybody in the United States comes under American due process, and that's what it's really coming down to. I wish that was the thing that they always would remind people, that if you stop ending due process for a group of people because they're in a questionable status. And of course, it's not just that Trump is going after, the most horrible criminal illegal aliens, but he's trying to downgrade the legal status of others. And of course, birthright citizenship is coming in front of the courts. And if he gets his way there, he's going to want to denaturalize more people. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with somebody who wants to he doesn't understand the constitutional guarantees. It's all well and good when it works in his favor, but people he doesn't like shouldn't have any constitutional guarantees, should not have due process, and we should live in a kind of a jungle society where it's every man and woman for herself.
Billy, appreciate the call and the perspective. I love the constitutional point. I was trying to get to my American Constitution and its amendments as the president was speaking last night, but I can't keep up. I have a hard enough time with our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Not that hard a time. I'm more accustomed to ours, but nonetheless, I think it's a great point made by you when it comes to the constitutional point being made by the political opponents of President Trump last night. Just all this talk reminds me, and I can't believe I didn't think of sharing the story earlier. In fact, it occurred to me after the show on Monday because I was listening to Now You Know with Rob Snow, and Rob was talking about our perceptions of Americans or something like that. How do you feel about America? So I was in America on the weekend, don't you know? We traveled down there with the Kitchener Rangers. By the way, there's a Rangers game tonight. We're not going to America. We're not going far at all. We're basically going around the corner and down the street, and we're going to play the Guelph Storm. Pre-game coverage starts at 6 o'clock. Josh Piercy and I will be on the air right here, bringing you all of the information before the game and then all of the action from the Sleeman Center as the Rangers take on the Guelph Storm. But in the United States on the weekend, a few of us were in Tim Hortons picking up a coffee order, and unprompted, a couple of nice older ladies at a nearby table just called out and said how much they appreciate us Canadians. We're like, oh, what did we do to demonstrate our Canadianness while we were here? Well, you're in Tim Hortons for starters, they said, but they just wanted to say, and that's what they said, we just wanted to let you know that we really like you. We really like Canadians, and we hope you're not mad at us. And we were just standing there, the three of us, shooting the breeze, waiting for our coffee order. And these ladies decided to say, hey, we really like you Canadians. And that was a random encounter in a Tim Hortons. I mean, where else would it happen, right? But in Erie, Pennsylvania on the weekend. They wanted to tell us how much they like Canadians. And don't blame our president on us, or don't blame us for our president. So clearly not Trump supporters or voters, but I thought that was rather interesting that they felt compelled to just call out to three random dudes in a Tim Hortons in Erie that they really like Canadians, and please don't be mad at us, which, you know what? We weren't. I had an absolutely lovely visit to Erie. Some great people there. I did not run into one person that I would call a jackwagon in Erie on the weekend. So there you go. You're just fine in my books, American people. You're just fine. Talkback continues here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Your Talkback Hour gives you the opportunity to have your say on the show. And we open up the phone lines every day, noon till 1. Andre is next. Good afternoon, Andre.
Good afternoon, Mike. Just woke up.
Sorry, Andre, I can't hear you.
I said I just woke up.
All right, well, start talking because we got lots of other callers.
I really love your segment this morning about...
How did you hear it if you just woke up?
No, I slept an hour.
Oh.
Okay. The segment with the church and the guest that you had on was perfect. And you explained it very well, Mike, that 10 years ago when you're walking and you're seeing these church, and then you have this idea and vision, and then Mary called, and it's very tough to put a finger on those, but it's so true. And I think it's a genius idea, my Grand Pumbaa.
Thank you, Andre. I appreciate it. I did have the idea while walking the dog some years ago. A lot of churches sitting on a lot of property and declining attendance at those places of worship. Could we not transform those parcels of land into something different while still recognizing the congregations that gather there? And there is work in that regard going on right now in the community. And according to our guests from Relevan, who joined us on the show this morning, we've got more than 300 faith institutions in the region. Almost 1,000 acres of land, 600,000 square feet. We could house 55,000 people. That's if every one of those places of worship were to be converted. But even a fraction of them, you can see what is possible in that regard. Ideas. We talk about a lot of them on the show. Jason is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Jason.
Hey there, Mike. It's Jason back, the guy that was before the last break.
My apologies. And I said John, too. My John, terrible apologies.
That's fine. I only heard one caller, and then my Seeker app didn't work, but he said that he's got his MBA and that his father with dementia said it's a master of BS or whatever.
Yes.
Here's my point.
Okay.
I just wanted to say I'm not a Monday morning quarterback. Second of all, this isn't an opinion. This isn't an assignment for MBA. It's my customers saying they need to build plants because they have sales and they don't know what country to put it in. And they're not even looking at Canada if we don't have a deal. So, and I forget what the caller's name was, but he says, yeah, things have changed. What hasn't changed is we're beside the largest market on the planet. And it's childish to say, like, We've got deals with 60 countries around the world. If we go get 60 more deals, it wouldn't be a 1% of our trade with the U.S. So just want everybody to keep that in mind. It's not my opinion. It's my customers that build plants for manufacturing. That's all I wanted to say.
Jason, I appreciate it again. And I'm glad you called back. The clock is always my enemy. We had to get to the news update before. But I hear it in your voice. Like I'm picking up what you're throwing down. I am. I respect the experience that you are sharing with us. And I'm not on the ground out there. So I rely on people like you to provide that on-the-ground perspective. And this is where we find ourselves. And Jason says we better get a deal. We better get a deal. Because as much as we want to look around globally for new trading partners in this new world order, largest market is literally next door. Literally. Something else I wanted to share with you today on the show, because this popped up at the recent Waterloo Regional Police Services Board meeting. And you know me on this issue. If you've listened to this show for more than a minute, you know how it chafes my chaps when it comes to impaired driving. To me, there is precisely zero excuse for it. It really upsets me. And frankly, I think our laws surrounding it are way too lax. I am a one and done kind of guy, because you had a choice, sir. Anyway, or madam. It turns out that instances of impaired driving, charges laid year over year, up 18%. This is not good. I want them to go down 18% and then 18% more and then 18% more than that, but up 18% here in the region. This is what Chief Mark Crowell had to say about it at the Police Services Board meeting.
Whenever we launch, the seasonal campaigns, it's never been easier for people to find other choices and means to not drive impaired with ride sharing, with public transportation, and so on. So it's concerning to us, and we'll make best efforts to mitigate and educate and to enforce. Throughout 2026, as we add the dedicated traffic enforcement team, we'll continue to evaluate the trends and the impact of our resources with the loss of automated speed enforcement, and then also tying this to the trends for impaired driving as well. Impaired driving continues to be the most leading, but also the most preventable criminal cause of death in Canada. There's no shortage of opportunities for people to make the right choice and to arrive alive and not endanger themselves and others.
Drunk driving up 18% year over year. Here is something to consider vis-a-vis that stat. Have you heard of passive impairment detection? I don't always love technology. I love this technology. What passive impairment detection is, in a nutshell, is a vehicle that can sense whether or not the driver is impaired. And this is very sophisticated. It goes far beyond the traditional interlock devices that exist, forcing a driver to pass a breathalyzer test before they can operate the vehicle. We've heard the jokes before, just get somebody else to blow into that breathalyzer, off you go. But sensor systems that are part of this passive impairment detection technology will detect alcohol levels through touch or the ambient air in the vehicle. They'll monitor erratic lane departures, even assess a driver's head and eye movement while behind the wheel. And if the technology decides something just ain't right, the car is automatically brought to a safe stop and shut off. In the United States, they are pushing that every new vehicle, be sold with this technology by 2030. So in the next 4 years. There is some support in Canada for this by way of a public opinion poll, but nothing regulatory as of yet. Please, Canada, can we get on board with this idea? Passive impairment detection. Imagine the vehicle that can sense whether or not the driver is impaired. The fact that there is no excuse for drinking and driving, and you heard Chief Crowell say it there, so many other options. It's so easy. You just click, spend on your phone, and you've got an Uber right in front of you. Like, there is no excuse for it. But if we cannot help ourselves, then let's take the technology and get the technology to help us. Let's get passive impairment detection into our vehicles here in Canada. That would be a very lovely thing. I cannot believe we are still engaging in this behavior, and it's up 18% year over year here in the region of Waterloo. Tisk, tisk on us, says I. And that'll do it. I'm out of time for another day. Remember, it's game day, baby. Josh Piercy and I on the air with Harris Law pre-game show coverage tonight at 6 p.m. from the Sleeman Center. Rangers and Storm face off at 6:30. We will bring you all of the action right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. Looking ahead to our show tomorrow. Did you know that conservation authorities are one of the largest landowners in the province? And there's a push by municipalities to have a little more say in this amalgamation of those conservation authorities. Plus, did it quietly go under the radar, the raise that Woolwich Township councillors have gotten? And it's a mega jackpot I want you to know about, plus living retired, all of that and more coming up on your show tomorrow. I'll be back at 9. I look forward to talking to you then, or join me tonight starting at 6 from the Sleeman Center for Rangers hockey. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.